Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Mic check. Good morning. It is 8:19 a.m. here on the East Coast. For those of you who may be rooting for one of our feature sheet teams here, maybe a little earlier than that, especially with daylight savings having come just 5 days ago. So good morning. Hope everyone's up and ready. Today's feature game that we'll be broadcasting here at the 2026 USA College Nationals will be the Quakers of Penn, who you see on the ice right now on sheet 3, versus the Rams of Colorado State, who just finished up their practice just about 5 minutes ago. Right now, the team is finishing up its practice. That's Penn will be finishing up their practice, and we will be getting underway probably in about 10 minutes from now, when the game is supposed to start at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. My name is Brad Johnson. I'll be on the call for this game. Please, if you are on the chat and you're watching, feel free to leave comments. I should be checking those, so hoping to have an engaging conversation with folks, hoping to give people updates. We have plenty of information that we will be broadcasting today, but for right now, I will let you watch the practice, and I'll be back in about 10 minutes with the start of the game. And we're back, ready to kick off the start of the first pool play game of the 2026 USA Curling Nationals. Again, I'm Brad Johnson on the call from Schenectady Curling Club. We're live covering these games here. This is Pool C action we're going to have between the Rams of Colorado State and the Quakers of Pennsylvania. Both of these clubs earned their way here to the Nationals. So we have some of the college's best and brightest here that are going to be competing for gold medal. The gold medal games will be on Sunday. So right now we have 16 teams in the pool. Each pool consists of 4 teams. This pool consists of Colorado State and Penn, who you'll be seeing today. And also in the pool are the, RPI Engineers and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So those 4 teams are representing Pool C. The top 2 teams of each pool will advance after tomorrow morning's games. So it'll be a full round robin. This is the first game of those. And then afterwards, the top 2 teams will advance to the quarterfinals. So the top 8 teams out of 16 that are here at Schenectady. Looking forward to a great game with you. This game is being cast on YouTube. Obviously, you're watching it here, so please feel free to drop any comments as you're watching the chat. Give any feedback that you may have, any questions. I know we just had the Winter Olympics just about a month ago, and there was a lot of curling. A lot of people are excited about Corey Dropkin, Corey TC, the doubles team, getting a silver medal for the United States. If people remember watching that in Italy just last month. So a lot of hype, a lot of excitement, but maybe still some confusion about the rules. Anything you need, feel free to leave anything in the chat, and I should be able to respond to you here. So let's talk a little bit about these 2 teams that are going to be facing off today. And we will be checking in on some of the other sheets just to get updates, but those sheets are on separate streams. So on sheet 1, we have that's the aforementioned RPI Engineers and Minnesota Golden Gophers. On sheet 2, we have RIT taking on Nebraska Omaha. And on sheet 4, we have Bowdoin taking on Minnesota Duluth. So those are on separate YouTube streams. Those will not have featured commentary like this game will. But I will be checking in from time to time just to see how those scores are progressing. But you can go to those separate streams if you're interested in watching those games. So the 2 teams we see today are the Rams of Colorado State and the Quakers of Penn. The Colorado State team is brand new. They debuted just in 2025, so this is their first full season. They only consist of the 4 members who are actually playing today, so we'll start with them. Their skip, Brendan Polo. Their vice, Josh Payoff. Their second, Chris Rocheleau. And their lead, Ross Flaxman. So those 4 members started this season started the club up at Colorado State, and it's good to see already 1 year in, they have made the national stage. They're one of, I believe, 3 teams here that are actually debuting on the national stage. So we wish them the best of luck here at Schenectady. And they'll be taking on the Quakers of Penn, who have been around since 2014. Their club's slightly bigger with 8 members. 4 of them are on the ice here. Their skip, Jack Gearin. Their vice, Luke Cryer. Their second, Joseph Katz. And their lead will be Colin Schneider for today. Penn will be throwing the Yellow Rocks, and Colorado State will be throwing the Red Rocks today. And games should be getting underway any minute now as we have hit 8:31 East Coast time. My apologies to any of you who are rooting for Colorado State and watching from the Midwest. I know it is 6:30 a.m. right now, and it's 6:30, but it's only 5 days removed from being 5:30 in the morning. So early morning, I'm sure, for you individuals, but glad that you're here to join us. I see in the chat, who will the UNO Mavericks be playing? Believe they will be playing RIT on sheet 2 right now, or sheet B. So if you find that stream, I think you should be able to see them. We got some support already for Colorado. Thanks for waking up early if you are out in the Midwest. I guess Mountain West. Midwest is inappropriate for me to call Colorado the Midwest, so my apologies already on that. All right, so we're ready to get underway with Penn has their draws to the button were not as close as Colorado State, so Colorado State in their practice draws the button being superior got the hammer in the first end. That's an advantage for the last stone. And we will have first stone on its way from Colin Schneider, the lead from Penn. Call was a center line guard. Looks like it's over curling a little bit, but the weight was good. And this is going to settle in as a nice high guard, a little bit off the center, but we are underway. Colorado State now with hammer. Looks like they're going to draw towards the wings, hopefully leaving it corner guard. It looks like the call from Skip Brendan Polo. Ross Flaxman's outturn stone is on the way. The sweepers are on it, trying to get it there. Looks like this is going to come up light, but it will get over the hog line. And this actually looks like a really nice looking shot for a corner guard. Very nicely done. The second stones are on the way now from lead Colin Schneider. This one looks much more online in terms of the center. The general goal for those of you who are less familiar with curling, general goal for the non-hammer team, the team who throws the first rocks and thus don't have the advantage of throwing the last rock at the end, is to try to keep play more towards the center, keep play more towards the button or the center of the rings, kind of the more intuitive strategy if you're new to the game of curling. Whereas typically, and you saw from that first shot from Ross Flaxman, the outturn draw to the wing, when you have the hammer, you typically want to keep play away from the center so that you have that option for your final stone if you need it, but also you can start to craft bigger ends because you've kept the scoring area wider. And the scoring area means basically points, rocks that will score in the house. So you have the full 12-foot diameter of the house to play with. Ideally, you can use as much of that as possible when you're the hammer team and get more and more points. And this is a really nice looking draw behind a corner guard. So this is about as perfect of a setup as you want with the hammer if you were Colorado State. Now we have second Joseph Katz throwing stones for the Penn Quakers. Joseph is from Birmingham, Alabama. He's a senior at Pennsylvania, and he did want us to give a shout out to specifically his younger brothers Lawson and Timothy, as well as his family members that are all watching and hopefully supporting him here. And looks like this stone, unfortunately, is a little heavy. Goes through the house. And Colorado has a couple options here. Colorado State has a couple options here. Looks like they're going to try to draw another one to that wing. Really keep that play over to that left side if you're looking down the sheet. They're going to ignore that yellow stone that's top 8 of the house right now. As it is, red is sitting 1. And in good position, really craft a big end, so they're going to try to put more stones in play, not worry about hitting that yellow stone yet. And this stone on its way looks a little heavy. This stone coming from Chris Rochelot. And it does go through the house, so we're back to where we were just 2 stones ago. One thing that's different is particularly at the nationals level that some of the other curlers, college curlers may not have experienced, especially if they're playing on arena ice, is this ice has been prepped immaculately by the USA curling crew here, and our own local members have helped as well. The ice is going to be prepped so that the speed of the ice is probably going to be a lot faster than what these people are used to, these bright young kids are used to. So because of that, it's not unexpected that for simple draws, stones early on are going to go a little bit heavier than perhaps they would have wanted. And you see there that stone that was just thrown probably was a little bit heavier than they wanted to be, but they did get a nice little rub off their stone, so they are sitting shot rock. They, of course, being the Penn Quakers with yellow rocks. Colorado State now looks like they will attempt to bump out that yellow stone that's partially buried behind that high yellow guard and maybe get a little bit of a roll to the wing. Love to see it in the comments. Love curling. Love to see the support that we're already getting. I already have 11 people watching, especially 8:30 in the morning East Coast time. And for anyone who is supporting Colorado who might be there, this is quite early, so we love to see this. So thank you for everyone who's in the West, not Midwest, West, watching this game. All right, and now we're on Vice Rocks. So this is Luke Cryer throwing for the Penn Quakers, throwing an out-turn draw, it looks like. With that last stone missing from Colorado State, Penn has a real chance to flip this end really on its head and put themselves in the driver's seat to either steal some points or at least force Colorado State to have to make a really tough shot just to get their one. So this end has definitely turned around from where it was set up just a few moments ago. And so now we have Vice Josh Payoff coming up for Colorado State. And it looks like the call here is to hit that top yellow rock that's actually acting as a guard. And there's a couple good options here with this stone. As long as they don't miss it too wide, they could hit the stone out of play and that opens it back up. And the shooter will roll, maybe as acting as another corner guard. Or they could get the double if they run that yellow stone back at just enough the right angle, get rid of the top yellow as well as that one that's almost biting the back four there. And they're really close, but just a bit wide, but that's okay. That's, as I said, that was the first thing I said. That ends up being another corner guard for that red rock. And Penn now has to do something about that shot rock that's sitting back four. It's once again exposed. And we have another out-turn draw. Looks like guard being the acceptable shot. With it being light, it'll just do the same thing that the previous stone was from Luke Cryer. So when I say out-turn, for those of you who don't know, for a right-handed curler, that means a counterclockwise turn. So you'll see right to left looking down the sheet on your screen. If I say in-turn, that is a clockwise turn for a right-handed curler, left to right on your screen. And basically, it's supposed to refer to the direction your elbow turns once you put the handle on the stone. We put handle on the stone so that we can control it, predict where the stones are going to be. If you put no handle on a rock, as I will tell you who's curled before, it can go haywire and it can go any which way, and it's very hard to control. So we put a handle on so you can control it. And a big takeout there from Josh Payoff of Colorado State. Gets that counting guard out of play. It was definitely close. The sweepers did a good job to hold that line. If that curled any more, there was a good chance that that was going to pick out that red stone on the wing that's so nicely buried for Colorado State. So really nice job by the sweepers to hold that as straight as they could, kind of split that port between the red and yellow stones that you see back there. So Penn is still sitting one, but it's a precarious one, and Colorado State is sitting second and third count closest to that pin. And so it looks like right now the call here for Penn is to try to have Jack Guerin bump out that stone in the center, maybe sit second count and also minimize some damage. That way, you know, there's even if the end does not go the rest of the way your way the rest of the end, you're not giving up a big end here. So just bumping that red out, keeping that yellow around is a great shot, and that's exactly what he does here. Ideally, that would have rolled maybe a little bit to the left to kind of guard the shot rock there, but that's okay. That's a really nice shot there to minimize damage. And I would be surprised here if Colorado State did not choose to just go after that shot yellow rock there, where you see the broom is placed. So we're going to see a takeout here, probably from Brendan Polo, the skip of Colorado State. Ideally, hit that stone, keep it so that it is out counting both the yellow rocks that are at the top of the house, and Colorado State will be sitting 2 with 1 stone apiece for each team. Stone is on its way. It looks really strong, pretty big weight, but it hits so close to nose that it really doesn't get much of a roll, and that's an excellent result right there for Brendan Polo. They are sitting, it looks like 1 and 2, pretty clearly, pretty well covered under those corner guards, and with only 1 stone left for Jack Gearin, he's got a big decision to make here of how he wants to minimize damage. A few different options, but it looks like he's discussing it over with his vice, Luke Cryer, and looks like they've decided to do an out-turn draw to kind of sit down, nestle on top of those reds. And if he throws a good rock here, right on top of those reds, it will basically guarantee that Colorado State can only get 1 point, even with a nice draw to end this. Definitely a lot hinges on the shot here from Jack Gearin from Morristown, New Jersey, sophomore at the University of Pennsylvania. Lefty, it looks like, too. So for him, this is an in-turn, even though this is the out-turn direction I was describing before. Stone is on its way. Sweepers are on it now to try to push it. The outside sweeper, so you'll see the outside sweeper is trying to push it to get it to curl. And that's really what the purpose is at this point. It looks like the stone's a little heavy, but if they can get to those reds and just rub it, they'll at least be sitting shot, and that's exactly what they're doing. So not a bad shot, however, it is exposed. It's not, the perfect shot would have been a little bit lighter so that it's on top of those reds, hard to get out of play. It had enough weight that it actually bumped, and now it's flying open. So Colorado State does have a shot for 2. However, it did bump that 1 red stone far enough where the yellow stone you see on the top of the white, Ruggerio's, one of our key sponsors we have here at Schenectady, that stone is out counting that back red. So really it needs to be a perfect shot here from Brendan Polo to hit the yellow stone, stick around, and get their 2, with both stones being full 8 foot. Stone on its way. They have the sweepers on it early, and now they call the sweepers off, which usually means they like the line. They want to let it curl a little bit. And that is a perfect shot. 2 really nice hits from Brendan Polo, and that looks like a 2 from here. So at the end of one end, I believe the score is 2-0 Colorado State, with Penn now having the hammer, and we will transition to the second end after a 1-minute break. At Nationals, we have a 1-minute pause. While we have that 1-minute break, check in on some of the other sheets and on the other scores that we have. So if we look over at sheet 1, it looks like there was a score of 1 for red. That was Minnesota Golden Gophers, so Minnesota Twin Cities. So they are up 1-0 on RPI there, it looks like, with RPI having the hammer this end. On sheet 2 here, we have RIT taking on Nebraska Omaha. Nebraska Omaha is in yellow, so RIT scored 1 point, which means now Nebraska Omaha has hammer. And finally, on sheet 4, we have Minnesota Duluth in red and Bowdoin in yellow. And it looks like Bowdoin scored 1 in the first end. And so right now, it looks like that the Minnesota Duluth team has the hammer, down 1. So 3 ends scoring 1, with our feature sheet scoring the 2. And we'll go back there with the first stone on the way already from Colorado State and Ross Flaxman. The call was a center line guard, with the ice being pretty quick. This stone is carrying just a little bit more than you wanted to, and it is going to sit on the back 12. Perfectly on the center line, though. The line was perfect for that shot from Ross Flaxman. As I mentioned before, now we're up to 16 people on the live chat. If anyone wants to comment where they're watching from, ask any questions, heckle me, I am okay with whatever you want to do on the live chat here. So feel free to comment. I will definitely try to check in intermittently and respond to anything that I see there. Later this afternoon, we should have multiple commentators commentating games, but I'm riding solo here, so definitely could use some content from you people that want to send anything there. And the call was a corner guard, and unfortunately, again, ice a little quicker maybe than some of these students, college students, are used to, and that stone went just a little deep to the back 8. And it looks like Brendan Polo is calling a hit on that yellow stone. So for those of you who may or may not be as familiar with the strategy component of curling, the advantages of calling hits versus draws and guards and everything like that are basically how you want to shape the end. It's all about what you want the end to look like as this stone over curls a little bit and ends up just going through the house. It looks like what Brendan Polo wanted was to hit that yellow rock and basically make it so that PENN in yellow is not crafting any offense, really. Basically playing an end for, we're going to just take stones out of play, we're going to make it so that it's hard for you to craft your offense. And that's a choice, especially when you have a 2-0 lead early on, that basically is more on the defensive side, we'll say. And an offensive strategy in that situation, if you were Colorado State Rams, if you were Brendan Polo, you might have called a center guard or something like that. And that way, you could have crafted some offense, maybe try to get behind cover later on, because anything that's not in the house for the first 5 rocks cannot be taken out of play. So that's the advantage you have, is early on, if you throw rocks not in the house, you can play a little bit more aggressive. So even though people may think that hitting is an aggressive move, hitting is typically a more defensive move. And guards and draws, the softer shots, are actually the more aggressive plays. But anyways, decent setup right now for PENN in that they're sitting 2 in the house. Neither of them are split that far apart, but sitting 2 is always nice. If you were to trade hits without any doubles, you'll get your 2 if you were PENN here. So Brendan Polo is again going to try to play some defense and take out a stone. And that's a really nice shot. And with a little bit of a roll, it's even making it tricky to pick out that red rock without hitting the back yellow if you're PENN. So it looks like Jack Guerin is calling a control weight hit. That's what he's signifying when he taps his elbow. That's typically the hand signal for control. A lot of people yelling on the ice, so it's good to have those hand signals. Similar analogy to those in baseball who know umpire signals very well. You give signals to your team, let them know what kind of weight you want to throw, because there are different ways you can throw a hit. You can throw a missile, or you can throw something that's just enough to bump the stone out of play, and they'll do very different things. So this is a control weight hit. The idea behind that being solid enough weight where you're going to hit the stone out of play easily, but hopefully enough where the sweepers, if they need to take charge, can push it if they need to try to get it to curl more or hold the line. In that case, it was close. It did hit the correct side of the rock, but it had maybe a little more weight than Jack Guerin would have liked. And so it did end up rolling out of the rings. So Brendan Polo, you'll see, even though that stone is in the back 8, is just going to hit it. He wants to keep this a very open end, keep this, a very defensive end. And right now he's signaling to his team that the stone is wide on the takeout, so don't touch it. We'll see if it comes back, see if it curls, but right now it looks like he pushed out wide. And that's the feedback that he's giving right now to his team, letting him know that he pushed it out a little bit with his hand. And that's always good feedback. It's curling's a team game here. It's not supposed to be a point of pride type of thing where you get all upset because your skip's trying to tell you, oh, you may not have thrown that the way we wanted you to throw that. It's supposed to be a feedback loop. Things are constantly changing. The ice is speeding up. The ice is slowing down. Lines run differently. it's always important to just be open and honest as a team and keep the feedback loop strong. So we get a draw here from Penn, and it looks like it's a little heavy. As soon as it hits that tee line, the opposing skip is allowed to defensively sweep it, and that's exactly what Brendan does. Really good job here from Brendan Polo to make sure that that gets out of the rings. Stone was just a little heavy, so again, it's still just one stone in the house. He's going to try that same hit now to try to really keep it so that this end never is more than 1 point for either team. And a really nice takeout there. Excellently thrown rock. That is from Josh Payoff. Hit right on nose of that stone, and so it stuck around, which means now that Penn, Jack Guerin, has to deal with that stone. And so he's going to return the favor, hopefully, and take that stone out of play and keep his rock in the house, ideally. If you're the hammer team, it matters a little bit less about keeping the stone in the house than if you're the non-hammer team. And I'll explain that as we get to the end of this end, if the tempo of this end stays the same that it is now. And that's exactly what happens. They hit it, but they do roll out of play, so there's now currently nothing in the house. And Brendan Polo wants to just throw something top four. Something right in the center, right to the close to the pin. And the idea behind that is if you get a flash or a missed hit from the other team, from Penn, you could probably put a guard up, and then what was once an end that was not going to score any points is now an end that could score you some points because you just put a stone there. But the idea is this end is going to be hit back and forth regardless, and as it is, this stone ends up being deep, so no need for a hit. This stone goes out of play, and it looks like Jack Guerin is going to be calling a draw to the wing here. Try to keep it towards the outside, just barely biting the house. Since you have the last stone at the end, it doesn't really matter if you're in the center or not. You're going to be able to poke a stone out of play, so if you go to the wing here, if they chase you, it's just going to continue to be a hit game. So when you're the hammer team, there's never an issue with keeping the scoring area wide and just putting something just barely touching the house on the side. Now, what Jack could have done is he could have called a draw on the other side, and the reason why that might have been advantageous is there is that one rock that, while it's not in the house, it is still in play, and maybe he could have gotten the stone to jam if a hit doesn't hit quite right, or a jam meaning the stone hits the other stone and doesn't get out of play. So there could have been merit to drawing the other side there, but rather play the open side here. This side hasn't been played as much, so maybe he has a better chance of getting a missed hit from Brendan Polo here. But as expected, Brendan Polo here is just going to hit this stone, ideally stick, or maybe roll a little bit more to the center. And maybe after this stone, I'll get to what I was alluding to earlier about the idea behind why the hammer team is okay rolling out of play as opposed to sticking around in the house on their hits. But we'll see about the shot first. Shot from Brendan Polo hung a little wide, but he threw with terrific weight, and with that weight, even just getting a small piece is enough to roll that stone out of play. So it is an open house, no harm really done. If you're Brendan Polo, not really in any position to score a point here, but you don't have the hammer, so you're not necessarily expecting to score a point here, but there's really nothing going for University of Pennsylvania either. So Jack Guerin here is going to try just drawing, putting something in the wings, and hope for a miss from Brendan Polo. And so what I was alluding to earlier about the hammer team, if you have the hammer, typically speaking, as I mentioned in the first end, you want to keep the rings relatively open. You want to keep it so that you can always draw to the center later. It's an easy shot to get at least get your 1 point, and then maybe you can get a bigger end if there's stones in the wings. But the other thing you can do if you have an end similar to how this one is crafting is you can blank an end a lot easier if you have it open like this. And blanking just means no team scores any points. There are no stones in the rings at the end of 16 rocks for the end. And what that means is you get the hammer back for the next end. You would get to retain the hammer. So a lot of times teams with hammer, when they really want to get a big end with hammer and it's just not working out, but the house is relatively empty, they'll just start taking things out of play and hope that their stones roll out of play so they can get that blank later. So that's why I was mentioning earlier that rolling out of play if you're the hammer team isn't necessarily a bad thing. And that draw from Jack Kieran ended up being a little light, ended up being a guard. So what you're going to see here from Brendan is to try to draw behind that guard. Now, it's obviously not going to be particularly close to the button. It's not going to be, even if it's a perfect shot, it's not going to be a great position for a steal. You know, there's still going to be an easy draw path to get one, but it does take away the option. If it's buried nicely behind that guard, it takes away the option for the University of Pennsylvania to get that blank that I was mentioning before and retain the hammer. It's basically they'll have to just make a choice of what's your easiest shot for one, because now there's no chance to hit it out of play and get 0. But this shot's a little heavy from Brendan, and this looks like it's going to go through the house. And that's not surprising. His first 3 shots of the game have all been big weight takeouts. If you remember the first end, he threw 2 darts, and then he just picked a stone out of play on his last stone. So throwing back-to-back takeouts, or back-to-back-to-back takeouts rather, is going to make it a little tricky to hone in your draw weight. So a little deep from Brendan, but that's okay. As it is, there is no option here for Pennsylvania to get 2 points. It's basically a decision of do they want to take their 1 or do they want to get that blank. And so we'll see what they end up doing here. It looks like they did call for just a basic draw. Maybe they're happy to just take their point. Or maybe they are drawing through. We'll see. The stone looks like it's heavy, so it looks like it is going to be a blank. And that's exactly what's happened. So it is at the end of 2, it is 2-0 Colorado State. Penn retains the hammer going into the 3rd end. And we will have a 1-minute break. Once again, we will check in on the scores around town. By around town, I mean on the other sheets here. Sheet 1 here, it looks like they played a little bit of a slower second end, so they're still in that end, with RPI looking to try to get to the button on this stone. Looks like it's just going to hang a little bit wide, and it's going to be a steal of 1 for University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. So 2-0 for the Golden Gophers there on sheet 1 after 2, with RPI still having the hammer. Sheet 2, also a little bit of a slower end. RIT scored 1 in the first, but it looks like it's getting late in the end, and they are in a little bit of trouble here with a high center guard covering a rock that's almost biting button and 2 other counters for Omaha, Nebraska. So this could be a big opportunity here for Omaha, Nebraska, especially having the hammer. So we'll check back in on that maybe in a second. And sheet 4, they just finished the second end with Minnesota Duluth scoring their 1. So that is a 1-1 game after 2, with Bowdoin having the hammer in the 3rd end. We'll quickly go back to sheet 3 where we're throwing first rocks. So again, Ross Flaxman's first stone over-curled just a little bit. The weight was perfect, but it looks like it ended up acting more as a corner guard. And so it looks like Penn, Jack Gearin is calling a draw behind that corner guard, use it for their own advantage. Unfortunately, it looks like the stone is coming up short, but that's not, I say unfortunately, but that's a productive miss because that just acts as another corner guard. Allows you to create some offense if you're the hammer team over on that left side there, while still leaving a draw path wide open to the button on the right side. And we'll see what this draw looks like here. from Ross Flaxman lead the Colorado State Rams. And this looks pretty good. Really nice shot there. It's good. If nothing else, it's starting to tighten up that scoring area, which if you're the non-hammer team is always your goal of what you're trying to accomplish. Looks like they're just trying to follow them right back with the draw, but this stone looks like it's heavy and wide from Colin Schneider. So unfortunately, that's going to leave the door open here for Brendan Polo and Colorado State to start to build this end, to start getting more aggressive. So you saw last end, they were a little bit more defensive, just wanted to keep it wide open. Now with the way that it's set up, they think they can start crafting some offense even without the hammer here. So the stone is on the way now from Chris Rochelot. I do keep saying Rochelot, but I believe it's Rochelot is how it's supposed to be pronounced, so my apologies for Chris and any of his family members watching. He told me think of Rob Lowe, so I've been using that while saying his name here. Really nice shot there. You know, it's not perfectly guarding that rock, but it is a second counter. It's making it very tricky for Penn to have to figure out how they're going to get in there, and it looks like they're already turning towards a hit-focused game here. Ideally, they're trying to hit that top red rock and maybe roll to the left if you're looking down, so get under those corner guards. That would be a really nice shot if made. So we will see with the stone here coming from Joseph Katz. And this looks pretty close, maybe just, oh, that's incredibly unfortunate. As if that stays an inch wider, that at least gets the shot rock out. If that goes over, if that curls another inch, it gets that top rock out. And honestly, if it's somewhere in between, you even could have grazed the top rock and still gotten the back rock. So that is about as perfectly unfortunate of a miss as you can have. Just bad luck there, unfortunately. And so Brendan Polo is going to try to guard more stuff up front, try to create more traffic. It looks like, although this stone is going to go a little deeper than that, so maybe they're trying to, it looks like they're trying to get behind that high red, but it is going to tick. So it's going to leave a strong position in terms of a force here if you're Colorado State. But not necessarily a great stealing position because there are no guards in place. So it is still just target practice for Penn to basically throw their takeouts here. And you know, don't want it to be a commentator's jinx here, but I don't think you can miss here. I think no matter what, you will hit a red stone coming this way. It looks like the sweepers are on it immediately, and they're going to definitely get one. Oh, almost grazed the second one, but they do get the top red one out of play, and the shooter rolls out. And Brendan Pole's going to follow that up by trying to draw one just on the line with that one that's on the side of the 4 foot, but leave it a little higher, maybe the 8 foot. Basically act as a counting guard. Let's see what Penn wants to do to address that. Seems like right now Penn is in a little bit of a chase game as long as Colorado State keeps putting rocks in play. But the sweepers indicate early that this rock feels heavy as it comes out of hand. This is coming from Josh Payoff, so Vice's first rock. So sweepers don't touch it. It does come down nicely, but it is going to go sit on top of that other stone. It's going to be on the back of the button, and it is fully exposed. So we'll see what Penn wants to do here in terms of how they want to chase after these rocks. If they want to try to get the double, if they want to freeze on top of it. depends on what you're trying to get here. It looks like they are going to try for that hit, perhaps getting the double. Also no problem if they just get across nose on that top red and then end up sitting on top of that red on the side, the one that's biting the forefoot. That would be a perfectly acceptable, if not great, shot. So a lot of good shots here, a lot of good options. Sweepers are on it early though. It looks like this might be over curling, and unfortunately it is. It's going to pick the corner guard, the red corner guard that's there. It does open it up a bit more, but Brendan Polo's got another shot here with his vice, Josh Payoff, to try to put what he wanted before, a higher stone here, a little bit lighter. It's always easier to make it that second stone as opposed to the first one. First one you haven't thrown a rock in a little bit. Second one you just threw a rock, especially if it's the same line, same general shot call, so you can adjust. That being said, sweepers again think this one is heavy, and it seems to be holding out pretty wide. There's plenty of other rocks in the house to rub off of, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. So Colorado State is sitting 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the house. However, there are no real guards that should be in play for a takeout here. And all of those stones are behind the tee, which works to the advantage of the hammer team, typically speaking. If by your last shot, the only stones that the non-hammer team are behind the tee, you can always draw down on top of them or hit those stones. You have options, and those act as like catchers, so that you're never in that much danger. So even though the Colorado State's sitting 4 here, it's not necessarily shaping up to be dangerous. And that's a really nice shot there. Is it going to get the double? It is going to get the double, so they do get 2 stones out of play there. And also not the easiest hit here for Brendan Polo. He kind of has to hit a little bit wide if he wants to not touch that red stone. If he comes across nose and hits more towards the center side of that stone, it will knock out his own red, and he knows that. Not necessarily a bad shot to get both the red and the yellow out of play if you're red, but certainly something to consider here. Brendan, so far this game, has been on with his hits, so we'll see if he throws another one here. Takeout's on its way. Sweepers aren't touching this. And it just grazes that yellow guard enough to change the angle of the stone. And the guard ends up working in Penn's favor here. Now they have a chance to really flip this end around and possibly get multiple points here. Very, very close, but that corner guard did its job. While they skip discussing it, just want to quickly show you sheet 2. It does seem like Omaha was able to get 2 out of that end that we were talking about earlier. That was crafting. So Omaha, Nebraska with 2. They were sitting 3 at one point, but it looks like RIT did a good enough job to at least cut them down to 2. So it's a 2-1 game in favor of Omaha, Nebraska on sheet 2. Of course, we'll stick with it as the games progress here and we start going to the business end of the games. We're almost to the halfway point. Everybody's about to finish up the third end here. There will be a halftime break of 5 minutes after 4 ends. And that's something that nationals events are different than perhaps what you would see at the club level. There's usually no halftime in games, but at the nationals level you will see that. Coaches will be able to go down and talk to their team, talk strategy. So the draw here coming from Jack Guerin looks a little light, and it worked works effectively as a partial guard. Now it is fully, that yellow is still fully exposed, but now Brendan does have to come with the out-turn direction for his hit, as opposed to the turn that he just threw before that in-turn. So it is at least a different shot than what he threw before. But unfortunately that stone, being short and also curling just an extra few inches, does allow Brendan Polo to have a shot to basically guarantee again that Penn will not be able to get multiple points this end. That said, coming this way, it's going to be very hard for Brendan to hit the stone where he wants to and not lose that red rock as well, which is okay. At this point, you're probably not thinking of a steal. A steal's great if it happens, if you're Colorado State University. But you're thinking at this point, I just don't want to give up more than 1 point. Stone's on its way. They're pushing it to try to get the stone to hit the yellow. It'll hit. Now, will it jam? It will. So that red rock on the side ends up jamming. And actually, Penn is now sitting shot rock with just needing a draw, really just full eight with a couple inches to spare to get their 2 points and tie up this game at 2. So really a big turnaround in this end in the back half to allow Penn to have a chance to get their multiple. So Jack Gearin out of Morristown, New Jersey, going to throw an out-turn draw. Oh, excuse me, out-turn if you're right-handed, but he's lefty, so this will be his in-turn draw. Counterclockwise draw to the button. Same turn he just threw, just wants to put a little bit more weight on it just to make sure that it gets to the house, gets the 8-foot. Sweepers are on it immediately. They think it's light. Sweepers are off now, so they must think that the weight's adjusted, and it looks like it's going well. Sweepers back on it now, as you see. And this, usually that's a good sign when the sweepers are on it, off it, on it, off it, on it, off it. And sure enough, it's a perfect button draw to get there too. And after 3 ends, the score is tied 2-2. Colorado State will get the hammer back going into the 4th end. And we will do a live check-in on the other sheets. Over on sheet 1 here, we have RPI with the yellow rocks are down 2-0, and they have 2nd, 3rd, and 4th count here, but really difficult to see how they're going to be able to poke that stone that's in the button there out. If they can, they flip this game around, but this is tricky, so this is the hammer shot we will watch. Stone on its way. It looks like it's going to hang a little wide. It's pretty close to the perfect draw line, but just too difficult to get in there. And it's going to be another steal of 1 for Minnesota Twin Cities Golden Gophers. So they will take a 3-0 lead. Over on sheet 2, we have still a 2-1 game as they're finishing up the 3rd end here. Looks like yellow's last stone with red having hammer. And yellow's trying a long run back, it looks like, with red sitting to their red team being RIT. So Omaha, Nebraska's in a little bit of a tough spot. They need a perfect run back here to really avoid damage. And we'll see. It looks pretty good on line. Oh, that's a really nice shot. No, it didn't stick around, but it did get a rock out of play. And so it's going to guarantee that, or more or less guarantee that RIT is not going to get more than 2. I don't think that stone, that red stone, is really going to be split in. It's a long split, especially how far off the center line that is. But most likely RIT is just going to try to get their 2 here. But that's a really nice run back there when RIT looked like they had a chance for 3. And on sheet 4, they have not updated the score yet. But the fact that yellow is throwing the hammer rocks right now, I would assume that Bowdoin scored in the 3rd end, so they have the lead, presumably. The Really nice looking stone there, the top 4 behind the center guard. And we'll go back to our feature sheet now. Excuse me. All right, so 4th end, Colorado State has the hammer, and that makes sense based on where the first 2 stones are of the end. You can see that, typically speaking, you want to dictate play towards the center if you're Penn and you don't have the hammer, so they put a guard pretty close to the center line, or if not on the center line, hard to tell. And now they're trying to draw behind. That's classic strategy. If you don't have the hammer, try to tighten everything up. And if you're the hammer team, you want to play more towards the wings, so you see a corner guard to try to craft more offense towards the side of the house for Colorado State, and that's where those stones ended up being. But now with how good that stone was right there from lead Colin Schneider, really nicely buried, or at least mostly buried behind that guard on the button. Brendan doesn't like that location, so he wants to try to bump it out, come at it and poke it out. Doesn't have to be a huge hit, but just loosen it up. Now, unfortunately, what ends up happening, and you're going to see a rule here take place. Yep. So this is relatively new at all levels. There's the free guard zone rule, which I had mentioned earlier, where you cannot take a rock out of play in the first 5 rocks. But additionally, you can also not take a center line guard off of the center line in the first 5 rocks. That is, if it's the other team. Now, the other skip has the option of keeping the result if they like the result better than what it was, but clearly in that situation, it looked like skip Jack Guerin really liked the setup that he had, and so he didn't want that stone off the center line. So if that were not during the first 5 rocks at the end, that's a perfectly legal move, and if anything, that's actually a really good shot, because that opens it up if you're Colorado State. But because it was in the first 5 rocks, you couldn't afford to hit that guard, and unfortunately they did, and so Jack Guerin had to go back. The shooter, the stone that was thrown by lead Ross Flaxman, was taken out of play, and they set it back up. But unfortunately, a little bit of a heavy miss here from second Joseph Katz actually basically replaces the stone that was already there and actually leaves it a little bit wider than where it was before. So this is, the degree of difficulty on this shot is a little bit lower than what it was previously for Ross Flaxman. So we'll see if Chris Rochelow can get to it. And again, as I mentioned before, if he ends up being narrow here and hitting that yellow stone in the front, that's okay, because now we're past the first 5 rocks at the end. So that would be a perfectly acceptable result, but this looks perfect as is. It's going to get around. And that, as someone who has skipped many teams before, that'll make a skip very happy when you have a perfectly made shot, skinnies around a guard, and hits the shot rock the way you want it to. So Colorado State has now flipped the setup, and Jack Guerin is going to call for Joseph Katz to try to follow that up with basically the exact same shot, try to bump that red out of play. It is a tricky shot. You got to try to get around that guard and try to get as much curl as you can to try to get to nose of that red, if not across the nose of the red. Try to get back underneath that yellow guard. And it looks like this stone is a little narrow. So they're actually, he had the sweeper push it to try to make sure he got more of that yellow so that it didn't pick out jam on that red rock. So not all is wrong bad here. You know, especially when you're the non-hammer team, you don't necessarily want to open it up. But now that red is fully exposed, you do have a stone in the house. So you can play the hit game and switch from being offensive, like University of Penn was trying to do initially, and now play a little bit more of a defensive game. Take more stones out of play, let Colorado State take their one if they want it, if they have to too, but no more than that. And Chris Rochelow's stone on the way. It's going to be second count in the house. Not a bad shot. It does give the opportunity, if they want it, if Jack Guerin wants it, to try to go for that double with a heavier weight takeout, try to get both those red stones out of play. Looks like that's exactly what he's going to call. As it is, there's not really a great shot to not hit here. You almost certainly want to hit, even if you do want to end up being aggressive later on in this end. There's really no good draw path to get in there based on how the stones are sitting, so this is really the right call to make here. And the hope is to just get close to nose, but not quite to nose on that top red, and get action on the rocks to double them out. And this is going to overcurl just a little bit. It will get the top one out of play, and it'll roll under the corner yellow. So yellow is sitting 2 and 3, both of them under some amount of coverage. But again, if you're the non-hammer team, that matters less than if you're the hammer team. So with Colorado State being the hammer team here, Brendan Polo doesn't really care too much about those rocks that are sitting there. So he's not going to worry about chasing. He's going to just try to craft more offense. Play to the wing. And the sweepers think this stone is a little heavy. Sitting here, and from my position, this looks like it's going to go through the house. And it will. Jack Guerin sweeps just to make sure, but that was a heavy-looking rock. And now this is certainly left the door open, and this is, I guess, the risk you run if you do miss a draw, and maybe why it's a little bit more aggressive is now, while it's not necessarily going to be a strong stealing position, it is going to start to ratchet up the pressure if they make a takeout here. If Vice, Luke Cryer can hit this stone here, you're looking at Penn sitting 1, 2, 3, and Colorado State will no longer have the opportunity to craft multiple points. They're really just going to be playing for 1 point more than likely the rest of this end. Sweepers are on this early. And oof, it just overcurls just a bit. Coming inside out down the center line. Those are always the trickiest takeouts. I don't know why. If someone knows, feel free to put it in the chat, but those inside-out takeouts down the center line are always tricky. And so a little bit of a break there for Colorado State. They're going to try that same shot, that draw to the wing, try to sit 2. Sweepers again seem to think that this is a little heavy, coming from Josh Payoff, the Vice. And it looks like we're up to 27 people watching. I'll repeat what I've said earlier. If anyone wants to put anything in the chat, commentate where they're listening from, where they're watching from, just want to talk curling or make a joke, I am all for it. We will have multiple commentators for the future streams, but today I am solo, so I am more than happy to take commentators' feedback here. So Colorado State is sitting 1 and 2 here. However, there is, with big weight, there is a double there. And it looks like that's what the call is here from Jack Guerin. Even getting just one and rolling on top of the other is certainly not a bad shot at all. That'll actually change it from being defensive to more aggressive. You could actually sit really close to the button. But we'll see what happens. It does get one. Does it get the second one? Sweepers on it, and it looks like it does. That's an excellent shot there. And so with a big double, UPenn is now sitting 1, 2, 3. They do not have the hammer, so it does not necessarily mean that this is going to be a big scoring end, but it does at least put pressure back on Colorado State to make their shots, execute, and also it's going to make it very difficult for Colorado State to get multiple points here. And if you remember from a couple ends ago, in terms of blanking an end, this is not really an option for Brendan Polo and Colorado State here, as with 3 stones spaced out in the house, you're never going to get all those stones out of play. So if you're Colorado State here, it's really a matter of how can I try to get my 2? If not, I just need to settle for the safest shot to get 1 when Brendan gets to his hammer stone, the last stone of the end. It was a nice shot by Jack, certainly. Really nice double. We a stone here from Brendan. This looks like it's hanging wide. He's been throwing a lot of big weight takeouts, and unfortunately sometimes with big weight takeouts, sweepers can't really save you here. And so this one's gonna flash. And now, not only has the pressure rose because there's only one stone left for Brendan Polo, but additionally, Jack Gearin can actually change this to a more aggressive end. If he puts a stone just in the house, top 12, top 8, on top, maybe like on the same line, center line there, it just looks like what the call is, Brendan's gonna have a very difficult draw up against it to try to get his 1 point or cut UPenn down to only stealing 1 or 2 points. And if he misses completely, it could be a steal of 4 points. And keep in mind, Brendan Polo has only thrown 1 draw this game, and that 1 draw did go through the house. He's thrown a lot of takeouts otherwise, so because of that, this is definitely an important shot for Jack Gearin to really flip this game on its head. Sweepers like the weight. Again, they don't want this to go deep. They don't want to make it as easy as possible for Brendan. They would like it to bite the house if possible. It does look like it ends up just staying as a guard, but that's not a bad miss. It's not sitting 4th count, but it is right on line perfectly. That really, it's forcing Brendan to have to do a draw. Now he does have backing, but backing only helps if your line is if your line is there, and especially with how nicely in line that guard is. I don't know if you can really bank on the backing. Brendan's just got to throw a really nice draw here. Put something out there, let the sweepers carry it if they can. I appreciate the comment here from Dave. The in-to-out buck turn shot is a visual challenge, and people tend to correct on the release when they don't need to. Fair enough. Makes a lot of sense. If you're someone like me, you correct on the release for pretty much every shot and miss every shot that way. So for me, it's no different than any other shot, I guess. So maybe that's an advantage. Anyways, here's the stone from Brendan Polo. Sweepers are waiting, which might mean that they think it's a little heavy. This room again needs to hit something. Stone's checking nicely. This actually looks really nice. And they got the backing if they need it. It's curling. Cryer's on it to try to sweep it, but that is a really nice shot from Brendan Polo up against a lot of pressure. And so Colorado State will take their 1. Still a good end for both teams. UPenn forcing 1, especially a pressure shot for 1, is not a bad end by any means. And certainly that's a big shot for Brendan Polo. You got to be happy with that draw, especially because you haven't thrown a draw really yet all game. So 3-2 Colorado State as we hit the halfway point. And with that, we will do some around town scores. Looking at sheet 1, it's still 3-0. Looks like RPI is now sitting, oh nope, Minnesota is red, my apologies. So Minnesota is still sitting 1. RPI seems to be still stuck in that trap of getting guards out of play. It seems like every end we've checked over, Minnesota Twin Cities has done a really nice job of putting up guards and making it so that it's one of those more aggressive ends, and they can get their steal of 1. And death by 8 steals is certainly a good way to win.
You never told me that.
Thanks for the feedback, appreciate that. So RPI here is going to try a draw, which means it looks like they're conceding that this end is going to have to shape up to trying to basically be on the button, and it's going to be hard to get multiple points when you're like that. But maybe they got to get out of this rut where when you steal, you can keep stealing, and that's exactly what's been happening for Minnesota Twin Cities. So we'll check in on this. Yep, looks like another steal 1. So at halftime there, it's 4-0 for Minnesota Twin Cities. And I'm not biased at all, but my alma mater is RPI, so perhaps a little bit of bias there. But again, not biased at all. Looking at the end here, RIT. Looks like they're delivering their stone here. They are up 3-2, and it looks like they are sitting 1 and 3, and it looks like maybe they're trying to throw a guard up. or another draw, another counter. This is going to overcurl a little bit. So really interesting setup here. I'm actually going to leave it here because I think this is a fascinating, as it is sheet 4 finished up, so I'll give an update on sheet 4 score in a second, but this is the only sheet playing right now, and this is a really interesting setup because if you look at this, if you're yellow, you're down 1 point ties the game. You have a look for 2, but it is extremely tricky because if you do anything cute, and especially with hit weight, you could poke out your own yellow, and I assume if you poke out your own yellow, you're going to also poke out that back red, but you could give up easily a steal of 2 here if you lose the shooter 2. But there is a shot for 2, but it looks like it's just extremely tricky. There are times where it is fine to just concede 1, but obviously you don't want to just concede 1. But one thing you could do here is just throw a draw and just try to come down on top of that red, knowing that ideally, it's got to be perfect, but you're not really going to do any damage to give up more than 1 here. And we'll see what happens. This is definitely a swing shot here as we close out the first half of this RIT versus Omaha, Nebraska game. And this looks like it's really a nice line. Oh, that is perfect, but even with that weight, it's still going to roll enough that it is just for 1, but it's still a good result. Getting 1 is a great result there. Getting 2 would have, was the greedy result, but if that was the easiest shot for 1 anyways, great, really just excellent. Excellent all around there. And so at the end of 4 ends, we have a tie game here with RIT and Omaha, Nebraska. So really good games all around. I'll go over to sheet 4 quickly. They did not hang the score unless there was a blank end, and it looks like there might have been a blank end. And it's actually, yeah, that's possible. So it actually could be 2-1 here. So I had mentioned blank ends earlier on the broadcast, but looks like this is a nice low-scoring game here. Oh, thank you. A comment in the chat here. Wish happy birthday to my friend Paul. He's watching. Absolutely. Happy birthday to Paul. I also have a friend, Paul. It's not his birthday today. His birthday, I think, is in early April. But happy birthday, Paul, if you're watching here. This is from Daniel Gabriel. At least that's the username here that I'm getting. But absolutely. Happy birthday, Paul. Hope you have an excellent day on this Friday the 13th. All right. We're getting close to starting the second half of this game on sheet 3. We got a good one here. 3-2 lead for the Rams of Colorado State over the Quakers of Penn. UPenn will have the hammer starting the 5th end, so this is certainly anyone's game. Really, it'd be anyone's game. I would say that probably. Unless there was maybe a lead of 4 or more would be the only time where I would say, it's going to be tough, but this is certainly anyone's game here. And the first stone on the way from Ross Flaxman is an outturn draw. You'll see Ross has a stabilizer in his left hand as he stands up there. Different curlers have different deliveries. I also use a stabilizer for my delivery. Nothing illegal about it. Certainly, it's a matter of convenience, a matter of, slide style. Some people prefer having the broom because, one, it forces you to not put weight on your left side. It kind of forces you to be really well balanced. So balance is key when you're trying to have a repeatable curling slide. So because of that balance issue with the repeatable slide, a lot of people like to just, curl with the broom. Stabilizer's fine though. Sometimes it helps you get really low. I have a generally low release, low delivery. So it does help with that if you use the stabilizer. So different people have different preferences. Sometimes it's also convenient if you play something like doubles. As I mentioned way before, Corey TC and Corey Dropkin won the silver medal in curling at the Olympics in Italy. And it's very convenient if you have the broom with you to sweep your own rock, as Corey Dropkin did many, many times for any of those that watch. So, you know, there's definitely an advantage to using a broom on your delivery as opposed to using a stabilizer. But when you have a full team, there's really no difference. It's a matter of preference and what feels good to you, so that you can have the most repeatable delivery as possible. The stone here from Ross is a little heavy, but not too heavy. It should stick around still, even with a sweep here from Jack Guerin. But PENN is still sitting shot rock. It is playing more towards the center, so that is something to look out for as this end develops. Playing towards the center tends, don't quote me on that, because there are certain exceptions to the rule, tends to favor the non-hammer team, but certainly if you control the house, it really doesn't matter if you have the hammer or don't have the hammer. If you control the setup, then you're in good position here. So they're going to try to draw a second one in, but this is going to over curl a little bit. It is going to tick that guard, which is not necessarily a bad thing. That does open it up a little bit, and that was a guard that was not on the center line, so that was okay to tick. And as long as it didn't get knocked out of play. If that stone got knocked completely out of play, it would have gone back. But because it was just a tick and rolled it a little wider, the result stands. All right, we have rock on the way from Joseph Katz here. And so they tried, looks like, to just get in there, but it ends up just chipping the guard a little bit and acting as like another guard, which is certainly working to the favor of PENN here. So Jack Guerin is going to call for Joseph Katz to draw one in. And I apologize earlier. It was Chris Rocheleau that I misidentified as Joseph Katz, so my apologies to him if he's watching later. I've botched his name, I've botched his identity, so man, if he watches this later, I better not see him in the parking lot, because he's coming for me. Anyways, that's a good looking shot there from Joseph Katz. That's sitting second shot, perfectly buried behind that guard that's close to the center line of yellow. So this is an end that's really starting to shape up nicely for PENN. Brendan Polo, maybe seeing that, is going to try to minimize some damage. It looks like he wants to call a downweight hit to try to get that yellow stone in the back four out of play. Ideally keep that red around and force Jack Guerin to have to chase it. But we'll see. This looks like it's curling hard right now. Are they going to be able to get it around the guard? Oh, they are. That is, oh, it ticked just a little bit, but they might still be able to make the shot. All right, they ticked the yellow, but not enough to get it out of play. So ultimately, it actually might have been a better result for PENN, because it looks like it's now buried more behind the guard. And they are still sitting 1-2. So really potential big end brewing here for PENN. And Jack Guerin is going to want to put something high there to take away that draw / downweight hit path to get to the yellow. If you put something high that's buried behind that corner guard, or half buried behind that corner guard, it's a really nice shot. And it's going to control the end. Ideally, you have this biting the 8-foot, so that it's third count too. So you're saying 1, 2, 3 if you're yellow. But we'll see. Rock is on the way from Luke Cryer. And it looks like it's over curling considerably, so they're going to have to try a plan B, try a different shot here. And it looks like it's actually going to squeak through the port. Now, is there enough weight? No, there is not. So it's actually just going to work out to be a very wide corner guard. So just a little bit of an unfortunate miss there, but no real harm done. It does allow Brendan Polo a draw path to try to get down on top of that yellow there. The risk you run with stones behind the tee line, as you see there, is that draw path is there, and if the draw path is there and you're a little heavy, you can bump it. If you draw right on top of it, it basically takes away all the good work that you've done the rest of the end. So this stone, the line looks perfect. If the sweepers can get the weight right and freeze it right down on top of that yellow, it's perfect. So they are going to sit shot here, and it's pretty well buried, but it is not frozen, and what I mean by frozen is right on top of that back yellow. So Jack Gearin does have a shot to pick that stone out here and still sit 1-2. It might be really difficult to keep the shooter around if he picks that red out, but it's possible, especially if he gets good curl on the stone. He's just got to get around that high corner guard. So they might be able to sit 1-2-3, but while that's an excellent shot by Colorado State, certainly if that's another 2.5, 3 feet deep, it basically guarantees that those 2 yellow stones that are there, that are sitting second and third count right now, are never actually going to matter for this end, because that red is basically glued in there. But this is a good looking shot right now. The sweepers are managing it well. Oh, it's over curling actually. That is actually stunning how much that curled. It not only got past the guard, it curled across nose. Now, that being said, the result is still fine because yellow is sitting 1-2. As you can see, both are fully inside the 8 foot, where red, Colorado State stone, are biting 8 foot or just outside 8 foot. So the result is arguably better anyways than what would have been there. It's just instead of that back yellow counting, now the shooter is counting, which again, arguably is a better position anyways. So really, really nice setup here for UPenn to get multiple points here. And this stone is going to chip that guard. That's not all bad. It does leave that wide yellow exposed for a hit if Brendan Polo wants to do damage control later on in this end. He has 2 stones left, so he could chase that. But right now, UPenn is in the driver's seat, debating which way they want to draw here behind the double yellows. They are going to come with the in-turn draw, so the clockwise draw. And so there's a good debate to be had there about which turn is better. Because if you do the in-turn here, keep in mind you have to get around that deep yellow, that yellow that's in the 8 foot. So it's got to be a perfect shot to really bury. Otherwise, it's going to be a target that exposes. It might chip your yellow and stay wide open. If they come with the out turn, the advantage there is it's probably going to get around everything. It's going to be hard rock for Colorado State to chase. The difficult thing is that's wider ice, and so it actually has to travel a little bit more distance just based on arc length, but also it's probably a little bit frostier. You don't play the edges as much. And so there's pros and cons to coming down the center versus coming out wide there. Looks like Jack Gearin chose to have them draw down the center, and the result is good. The result is down to the back 8. No issues with that. They're sitting 1-2-3 right now. It's not really a great steal position. If Colorado State wanted to, they could draw on top of that, and maybe they might sit shot out of that actually, and that might be their best way to minimize damage here. But based on the discussion, at least the body language, it looks like they're going to go for a hit and roll here. Maybe on Brendan Polo's last shot, maybe they would draw down to that back yellow just to try to minimize damage, but we'll see. A perfect hit and roll here definitely would change this end around. Keep in mind, UPenn has the hammer this end. So having the hammer and sitting 3 is a very strong position to be in. So the takeout's on the way, and they have the sweepers on it immediately, which could be an indicator that it is a little narrow of where they want it to be. They're sweeping hard. It looks like they're going to get a piece. They're going to get a piece, and they're actually going to jam back on that red one. So while not the result they were looking for, it does actually work out fairly favorably for Colorado State. It looks like it's out counting 2 of them now. Definitely the one that it bumped, it's out counting. And I think it's out counting that back yellow that was previously thrown there by Vice Luke Cryer. So Jack Gearin here looks like he's going to try to possibly follow that red one down and maybe bump that red one. Can't tell for certain. It's also not a bad miss if he bumps his own yellow, because he'll be sitting. That will outcount the red, and it'll get that back red out of play. So just coming down that draw path with, you know, back 8, back 12 weight is not a bad shot by any means. So we'll see what the result is here, but there are a lot of good results here if he throws the right weight. Stone's on the way. Sweepers are down early. Looks like they might think it's a little light. And now they're starting to sweep. And now they're off again. Stone, the line looks excellent. Now it's a matter of where do they want the stone to end up. It looks like now it's draw weight. Draw weight's okay. All right, so that's top 4. So now it looks like they are sitting 1-2. I don't think they are third count. It's really hard to tell, but it looks like from this camera angle. Unfortunately, that's on the far side here, so I can't even look in person really to see anything. I'm looking at the same thing you guys are on the stream. It looks like that back yellow is out counted by that red. So I think right now it's just 2 that PENN is sitting. One of the stones is exposed, the other one's not. Obviously the risk for Brendan is if he hits that yellow nose, that is very, very problematic. That runs back into either the other yellow that PENN has, and that's fine for PENN. They'll take that. That just spits that back red out of play and sits on top of it as another counter, the yellow will. Or it runs into their red in the back, which makes this potentially a 5-ender for PENN, depending on what the shot by Jack Guerin would be at the end. So looks like Brendan is calling that hit. It is certainly not without risk. If I were Brendan here, I'd strongly consider missing a little bit wider and picking that yellow stone out of play. Yes, your shooter's, especially if you throw big weight, your shooter's not going to stick around, but that back red is right now your friend in terms of outcounting and making this not a big end. But we'll see. Shots on the way. Sweepers are on it, now they're off it. Stone's curling in, let's see. Yellow back, it does hit that back red. It does stick around, but now there is an open hit here for what looks like 3. I think it's too risky to try anything with that back red. I can't tell if that back red is out counting the other yellows. I mean, it could be for 5 for all I can tell. It's kind of an optical illusion with the way that yellow and that red are glued together in the back. But it's certainly, if Jack Guerin can hit the inside of that red, it's certainly for 3, and it might be for 4 or 5, depending on how those rocks shape out. The ones that are all in the red ring, the 12-foot ring there. So that was definitely the danger of Brendan's shot before, is that back 8-foot stone was really making sure that there was no huge end. And now there could be a big end that really will start to change the complexion of this game for the remaining 3 ends. But we'll see. Shot from Jack Guerin on the way. Sweepers are on it very early, meaning they might think it's a little narrow. Sweepers doing a really good job. Oh, this looks really nice. The shot's made. It's definitely for 3. It's at least 3. It could be 4 or 5. But hard to tell on the stream. Well, it looks like they're moving it, so they've already committed it. Well, we certainly will find out when they hang it. So, at least a 3-ender here for PENN. Nice shot at the end there by Jack Guerin. Colorado State will get the hammer back. And it looks... It looks like it was a 3-ender, so it is 5-3. And we will do a quick score check of the other sheets. This game is looking like a classic here, so we won't get you away too long. Wow, we missed something big here. RPI with a big fifth end to go from 4 down, not having scored all game, to 1 up with a big 5-ender. That's the power of when you capitalize on hammer. So any of you who are watching YouTube Sheet 1, you probably saw something excellent. So that's turned into a classic. Sheet 4 here, which I feel like I've been a little neglectful on. Looks like now that Minnesota Duluth has taken a 4-2 lead. Yep, 4-2 lead. So we'll keep an eye on that one. And sheet 2, we have our RIT versus Omaha, Nebraska game. And it looks like RIT scored 2 with the hammer in the fifth end to take a 5-3 lead. So we got some great games here. The only one that was looking like it was shaping to be a runaway, RPI is actually taking the lead in. So we've got some great games here. And back to our feature game now. We've got a corner guard here being thrown by lead Ross Flaxman. So, as we've seen before, the setup is classic. The non-hammer team wants to throw something closer to the center. The hammer team wants to throw to the wings. So this very common setup you see here. It looks like Jack Guerin's calling for a draw. That center guard probably could be a little closer to the center, so a miss light is not necessarily a bad thing here to get another guard up, but it looks like this is heavy and actually going to go through the house. Brendan Pohl is going to make sure that it does, and it does. And Brendan naturally will call a draw behind his really well-placed corner guard. Really nice shot from his lead, Ross Flaxman. Let's see if he can basically throw the same shot just with another 8 to 10 feet of weight. Sweepers think it's a little heavy, maybe? Or at least they think the weights doesn't need their help. Looking at it in person, it looks like it's a little heavy, but it is coming down a bit. It definitely isn't curling as much as they'd like it to, but it is coming down, so it is to tee. It's a really, really nice weight. Just didn't curl quite as much as they wanted to, so it is exposed. And it looks like Jack Guerin's gonna chase it, which, as mentioned before, does tend to play more towards a defensive end, but for the first time in the game, UPenn has the lead. So perhaps that's what they want. Oh, looks like actually with that broom, looks like they actually want to draw down to it. So I stand corrected. It looks like they are going to try to tighten up that scoring area, putting a stone right on top of that red. Start to play the 4-foot game, because as I mentioned before when we were looking at different streams, it certainly is hard to get your multiple points when stones are packed in the 4-foot. And so that's why it works to the non-hammer team's advantage. Stone's on its way. It looks pretty narrow. It looks like it's going to be right on that corner guard. And it is. Now Brendan's trying to sweep it. Why is he trying to sweep it, you might ask? Well, he's sweeping it because now, see what happens? That rock gets out of play. This was within the first 4 rocks. So he probably wants his corner guard right back to where it was. So that's why he swept it, to basically make it so that it was a violation of the free guard zone. If he didn't touch that, there's a good chance that that stays in play. But he liked the spot of that corner guard. And so this is a moment now where it's tough, especially because it's not a centerline guard. It's hard to have a reference point of where exactly that stone was. It is well within Brendan's jurisdiction to really choose where he wants that guard to be. It's, shouldn't put it anywhere, obviously. Shouldn't move it to a better location. It's kind of the sport of the sportsman-like aspect of curling. And that looks pretty close to where it was before. I'm sure anyone who's watching the stream can rewind and see how offset that is. Maybe you can tell me in the comments here if that's a fair placement of that corner guard. But at least from my naked eye here, it looks like it's okay. And so they're going to try to draw again, get another counter. It looks like they're trying to rub off this yellow now because it hung wide. And that's not a bad result. It's not a bad result because now, while it is more towards the center and you don't necessarily want center guards if you're the hammer team, now it's going to be really tough for UPenn to chase that red rock. And that red rock's, you know, it's almost biting the 4-foot, so it's not a bad counter. If you're Colorado State here, the thing you really cannot afford, especially in the 6th end, is a steal. If you score just one here in your Colorado State, you're perfectly fine. You assume you can get hammer back once more, and if you don't, well, that's a good sign. You probably went steal, and won the game. But if you give up a steal here in the 6th end, then it's tricky because even if you score with hammer, UPenn gets the hammer back for the 8th and final end. So it's really key, especially in an even end, to late in the game when you're trailing, and trailing close like this, to really just try to not give up a steal here. I honestly wouldn't even consider giving up a blank. If a blank opportunity presented itself, if I was skipping, I would probably just take my 1 point because I'm assuming I'm either going to go steal and win the game, or I'm going to get the hammer back for the 8th end, and then I can be hyper aggressive. I don't know if anyone else in the chat has any thoughts on what they like to do in situations like that, if they ever take scoreboard into account like that, but that's certainly something I like to do. And right now, I think Colorado State's got to be somewhat happy with the way that this end is shaping out, to at least get their 1, possibly 2, keep this game on pace. Stone on the way here from Chris Rochelot. Looks like it's like draw weight. Not curling a ton. It is running relatively straight, but the weight is just perfect there. And now they are going to sit 1-2. Now, what that does do is that gives Jack Gearin a chance to poke out that back red with a double. If they throw takeout weight, there is a double there. And even if you don't get the double, you at least possibly get the back red out, the one that's like almost impossible to get to. And the shooter, or not the shooter, the red that Chris Rochelot just put there probably peeks out a little bit, and you can get to it with a later stone. That said, this stone unfortunately is hanging out quite a bit wide, and it looks like they're not going to be able to accomplish what they want here. They do hit their own stone, which allows them to actually roll in, and actually looking at it, it looks like they may be second count here. And second count behind a guard. That actually definitely was, I don't know if that was the plan B or not, but that was certainly not a terrible result there for UPenn, especially if they're second count, which they appear to be looking at this overhead camera angle. Watching here as the commentator, my angle is not great on that. It looks about the same. We got people behind me here seem to see that yellow is second here, so really not a bad result for UPenn there. A second count, starting to tighten up the scoring area behind a guard. So we'll see what Colorado State's able to do here. It looks like this hit is sailing wide, unfortunately, from Josh Payoff. And it does. So UPenn here, now they have a second count, it looks like, undercover. Now they can start thinking of, one, how can I make it so that maybe Colorado State can't even score this end, not even get their 1. 2, start to tighten up the scoring area even more, so even if something bad happens, it's only going to be for 1 or 2. So really this end is starting to flip, all because of that shot that, you know, it was a missed shot, but certainly maybe it was in the cards, and maybe to Jack Gearin's credit, maybe he planned for that plan B. That result ends up working really nicely for them in terms of how they shape this end. Unfortunately, this draw is looking a little heavy, and so they're not going to be able to tighten up the scoring area anymore. They're not going to be able to sit shot. So Colorado State is still sitting 1, which, as I mentioned before, is not a terrible result. If you're Brendan Polo here and you only get your 1 this end, it's not bad. It looks like he's going to try to actually take that guard out of play with a bump weight, really make it so that that yellow gets exposed for a later shot. And that can work to his advantage, but it also can work to Jack Guerin's advantage too, depending on how aggressive he wants to be. Stone is on the way. He has sweepers on it. Brendan has the sweepers on it. And that'll work just fine. Cryer on the rock trying to sweep it out, and he does. Oh, and there's a big cheer over here as on sheet 2. Looks like a big shot was made for Omaha to sit 5, excuse me, sit 5, and they have the hammer, so we will definitely come back to that sheet really quickly. RIT with the lead, but Omaha, Nebraska in a really dangerous position. We will definitely make sure we check back in on that. All right, so Jack Guerin's first stone here, first skip rock. Remember, Colorado State has the hammer, so Brendan Polo will have the ability to counter whatever they do. The stone from Jack Guerin looks to be guard weight, and it is curling quite a bit. It is curling a lot. It is curling a ton. But it's going to be okay because it does end up guarding that yellow stone. It does roll over to half cover. So definitely danger for UPenn here, but that guard does end up being effective. So what Brendan is going to do here, Brendan Polo, is it looks like he's going to try to pick out that yellow stone. He wants to just get past that yellow guard and pick out that yellow. The miss here is obviously you can miss a little narrow and just peel that yellow guard, peel meaning just remove it from play completely, and therefore you force Jack Guerin to do something to make sure that this doesn't become a disaster end on his last stone. If you miss wide, all you do is hit out one of your own stones, and if you miss wide but you actually graze that yellow, that's the worst possible miss. You actually give yellow shot rock, which, as I mentioned before, you really got to at least get one here if you're Colorado State. So if you're Brendan Polo, this is a high-risk, high-reward shot. But let's see if he throws a dart here with big weight. They're trying to push it immediately, which means it's probably a little wide. They're pushing it. Can it get inside that wide red? No, not quite. Okay, so it does do something interesting. It moves that yellow guard out of the way. However, it does replace it with a red stone of their own. That does give options if Brendan wants to be aggressive and try a run back later, depending on what Jack Guerin does here. It looks like Jack Guerin's trying to put a second stone in the house, which is a smart move. You don't need to sit shot here. You just want to make sure that this isn't a big end. And so if you sit second shot, there's really not going to be a chance for Brendan Polo to get a 3 or 4 ender. It most likely will be just for 1 or 2, which means that UPenn will either have the lead or be tied with hammer in the 7th. But first things first, the draw underway. Draw with a little bit of backing, so he can miss a tiny bit heavy if he needs to. And it looks like it's light off the bat. The sweepers are calling it, and they're sweeping it hard already. Sweepers going hard all the way. Can they get it there? Can they get it around that red? They cannot. And, well, there is a very tight port there, but it is there. And there's a port there for Brendan Polo to get at least 3, possibly 4. I think with the weight he has to throw, the shooter probably rolls out. But that's a, oh, actually, I didn't even note that that red is now biting on the top, the one that Jack Guerin's draw just hit. So actually it would be for 4 or 5, not 3 or 4. So This is a very difficult shot. It's got to be precise, but if he does it, this flips the game on its head. For those of you interested on sheet 2, RIT was able to get a stone in the 4-foot, which has minimized damage. It looks like it's only going to be a 2-ender, maybe 3-ender for Omaha, Nebraska. But obviously I'm going to stick here for this hammer stone here. Oh, he's narrow off the bat maybe. The sweepers are on it, but we'll see. It's close. Oh, it jams. It jams. Oh man, and that's unfortunate for Brendan, because that's a swing of up to 6 points possibly. If that stone stays out another 1.5 inches, probably a 4 or 5-ender there. And unfortunately, he hits it, but he actually gives up a steal of 1, which not only scoreboard-wise hurts, but also similar to what I was mentioning about why you don't want to blank in that 6th end. It makes it so that you have to score with hammer and steal to win this game, as opposed to having different options if you scored with hammer there. So it's definitely tough when they were sitting 1. If he had just thrown that stone away, they would have gotten 1. But he threw such a close shot. You got to go for it, obviously. That's game-changing. Just really unfortunate. Unfortunate with the result if you're a Colorado State fan. Very fortunate result if you're a PENN fan. Your team now leads 6-3 going into the 7th end. And back on sheet 2, you can see that Nebraska-Omaha ended up getting 2 in that end that was shaping up for possibly 5 or more. So good end still, but obviously RIT did a good job to minimize damage, so that's a tie game. Looks like a great one over there. Depending on the timing of these games here, that sheet 3 and everything else, we may flip over to give commentary on whatever game is the last one to finish. Over on sheet 1, RPI got a steal, and looks like they're sitting right on the button, trying to throw another guard there, so RPI may have flipped that momentum around against Minnesota Twin Cities. We'll have to see. And on sheet 4 here, looks like Bowdoin was able to score 1 their last end, and they're trying to set up for a steal, which right now they're in a really good setup. 2 rocks in, or at least 2 of their rocks in, for that steal. So that's going to be a good one coming down the stretch as well against University of Minnesota Duluth. Back to our feature game here. So now, this is where strategy gets pretty interesting. If you're Colorado State, you know you need to score with hammer, and you know there are 2 ends left. So you got to start getting pretty aggressive and maybe ignoring some stones that are in the house to try to build more stones on the wings. But obviously you don't have to be hyper aggressive, because if you can just get a 1 or a 2, it's not out of the cards to steal 1 or 2 in the 8th end. And so if that's the case, I believe at the Nationals level, we play a full extra end on 9th end, if that's the case, if they are able to come back and tie it. So you know you need to score if you're Colorado State, and you ideally start getting a little aggressive with it, knowing that you can't just accept having 1, but you can't get too cute and try to get that 4 or 5 ender, knowing that if you give up another steal here, it may be almost impossible to win the game in the 8th end, or impossible to come back in the 8th end. Looks like we're dwindling in numbers on the live chat. Game's getting more interesting now, and people are leaving. I don't get it, unless it's maybe some of the other games. Then I can forgive you for leaving for some of the other games if you're watching there. Yes, 8 end games with a 9th end if the game is tied, I believe. But yeah, that's pretty standard at most nationals now, except for I think at the we'll call them there is no such thing as the big leagues. But you know, if you're a Danny Casper, John Schuster fan, the men's and women's championships at the national events, I think those go 10 ends. At least the championships do. But these will be 8 end games, so there are 2 ends left in this game. And stone on the way here from UPenn. That's Joseph Katz's shot. The setup right now for Colorado State is about as perfect as you want. You got a high-low corner guard set up, so that's really nice. And it looks like Jack Guerin's going to try to draw behind, which is an aggressive call for sure, but when you throw a stone as perfect as that one is, you probably don't care too much. Now, seems to be the right call here. Something I would definitely endorse from Brendan is a freeze right on top of that yellow. If you're a little bit heavy and you bump it back a foot, that's not a bad result. But you want to start using those corner guards, start coming to the wing. Ideally, if you get that yellow stone behind you, it's like backing. It's backing on your stone, which then if they ever try to start, they, being UPenn, try to take out your stone, it may jam on one of those stones back there. I agree, Joseph Katz does look quite charming. He's goated. Perfect. It seems like a charming individual. I did get to speak to them before the game, and they seemed like all right folks, I suppose. I guess I'll do some shout outs here actually while I have a moment, because I do have some information sheets from some of the individuals. Luke Cryer wanted to give a shout out to his sister Emily. His mom and dad are here watching, so he said for the stream purposes, give a shout out to his sister Emily. Hello, Emily. Colin Schneider, the lead for UPenn, out of San Diego, California. Let's see. Would love a shout out. Shout out Llama Brown, mentor and teacher who has most supported his curling journey. That's a nice shout out there. So, Llama Brown, that's a great name too. I hope I'm saying that right, or I'm reading that right, because that would be quite embarrassing if it's not Llama Brown. But shout out from Colin Schneider. Thank you for supporting him on his curling journey. As for Colorado State, I think I already, actually let me make sure I have everybody at UPenn here. Yeah, I already just gave a shout out to Lawson and Timothy for Joseph Katz. For Colorado State, looks like Josh Payoff wants a shout out to his roommate Andrew, who may or may not be watching right now. It's 8:15 now, you should be awake, even if daylight savings was 5 days ago and it feels really more like 7:15. I'm assuming you're in Colorado watching, if you are watching, but shout out. And let's see, for Chris Rochelot, shout out to the real ones at Colorado State University Math Department. So if there are any math people there that are watching, for Chris Rochelot, he's giving you guys a shout out. All right, back to game action, especially with this being a good one. Don't want to leave you guys hanging if anyone's confused by curling rules. I'm sure most people watching this know curling well, probably better than I do, but giving commentary just in case for all audiences. And again, you're welcome to comment in the chat if you have any questions or thoughts on anything, and I will try to answer your questions as best I can. He does seem like a man of the people from my 15 seconds to 30 seconds of interaction with him. I got that vibe for sure. All right, so right now Brendan Polo is calling a peel on a guard, which when you're down 3 is suboptimal. You don't want to be wasting time doing that, but with the setup UPenn has right now, you kind of have to. But this shot actually doesn't peel. It actually works out better than a peel, arguably. It gets that stone that was fully buried out, and it actually makes the top stone peek out and roll to the back a little bit. So while it's not, UPenn still is in a good spot here. That's a pretty good result for Colorado State right there with that shot. And UPenn definitely wants to put a second counter in there, ideally half bury or fully bury behind that high guard that you see just off the center line. Andrew, thanks for watching. There since 6:30. All the power to you guys. I got to start adapting. I'm actually going on a personal trip out to Utah next week, and so I got to get ready to get on your time zone. But you know, hats off to you guys getting up at 6:30. Hopefully daylight savings didn't kill you too much, and you know, it feels like 6:30, not 5:30. But still, getting up for 6:30 to watch curling is, as much as I love curling, it's not my cup of tea. So all the power to you. Glad I was able to get you the shout out. All right, so that stone there from Penn. Well, nice second counter. There is a double there. And if they can get that double, Colorado State is back in business. Okay, so Brendan is calling the peel, so he actually wants to make it a little easier. I wouldn't mind missing this peel similar to the last shot. I mean, you can always call the peel, and then if it's wide, I've done that as skip many times, call the plan B as your real plan A. Obviously, you want to hit something here. You can't flash. So this is going to peel the guard. So it's a good result. I mean, that's the called shot. But obviously, UPenn can put something up probably better than what that stone already was, and they're sitting 1-2. So at some point, Colorado State needs to get in there and get that double. Otherwise, this could be handshakes if UPenn steals 2 here. They'll be up 5 with 1 end to go. Not impossible, but especially when the other team's playing all-out defense, it's very, very hard to get a big end. You know, we saw RPI on sheet 1 get a 5-ender earlier, but obviously that's a different scenario. It's still just barely over halfway through the game. You're not ready to start milking the clock, playing your prevent defense, to use a football reference there, American football reference. I have to say American football because a lot of curlers, for whatever reason, like soccer a lot. I don't know why. I'm not a big soccer fan, but if I say football, they'll think soccer. So I will correct it and say American football. So here's the stone on the way from Jack Gearin. First skip rock, and it's a pretty nice looking guard. It's over curling a little bit, but it definitely covers at least enough, and it's deep enough where it is extremely difficult to get that double if you're Brendan. Because if you think about it, if you're going to get to that top rock, you probably got to, like, to get flush with that top rock, you got to throw down weight. Down weight's not going to get the double. And if you want to have enough weight to get the double, you really have to pick out. It's going to be big enough that it's probably going to sail past that guard, and it's likely going to just pick out that top rock. It's not going to curl enough to actually get the double. It is tight. Definitely something you got to go for, though. You can always miss narrow and hit that yellow guard. Ideally, you don't want to hit that yellow into your red, though, because you really want that red that's sitting there is your friend. If you're Colorado State, you want to be able to get at least a point, likely 2. And it looks like they're waving the front end down, which means they are probably using their timeout right now, if I were to guess. So at Nationals, each team gets a timeout. So they get the time for a coach to come down on the ice, talk to them. So they get travel time for the coach. And they also get, I believe, a minute for the timeout. And I think there's even more travel time because of how it's on the far end instead of the near end. So this timeout could be up to 2 minutes. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the curlers mic'd up. Otherwise, I would shut up and let you guys listen to what they're talking about strategically. But obviously, this is a very tough shot. Tough, big moment in the game for Colorado State, so I think it's a good use of their timeout. Early Super Bowl winner prediction. Well, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, so I will obviously not pick the Buffalo Bills because that's a pretty safe bet that they will not make it back to the Super Bowl. Ever in my lifetime. I was born the year that the Bills stopped making their run of 4 straight Super Bowls, so I've never actually seen a Super Bowl in my life. I've gotten used to seeing them in the playoffs. That's nice. It's fun to see them win a playoff game every year, but not make the Super Bowl. So I will pick not the Bills. I really like what Chicago's doing. I like the Bears a lot. My wife seems to be growing on the Bears. I like the Lions a lot too. I like those NFC North teams. for whatever reason. But I certainly don't really like anyone who's watching from Colorado. I do not like the Denver Broncos. I wish nothing but the worst for you guys. I'm joking, obviously, but nothing against Denver. But obviously, as a Bills fan, I can't root for the Broncos now. But I think I like what Chicago's doing. I think my prediction is Chicago's going to have a good season. Plus, they have Ben Johnson, which sounds a lot like Brad Johnson. So I support their coach. I support their team. Shout out to Sophie and Will. Hugo says hi. Comment in the chat here. So if Sophie and Will are watching, you got a shout out here in the chat. Here from Schenectady, New York, at College Nationals. All right, so the timeout's over. We are now getting the shot, and it looks like it is a true double takeout. They're trying to thread this needle, throw that perfect stone that skinnies that guard, gets the double. Let's see. It's close. It's a little wide. Oh, but it's just, I mean, I said a little wide, but I lied. That's perfect. I didn't know if that was the angle was going to get the double there. I thought it might pick that yellow and not get to that back one, but that's just perfect. That is a very, very good shot from Brendan Polo. Now Colorado State is sitting 1. Jack Gearin only has 1 stone left. Obviously, Brendan Polo knows that they can't get multiple this end, or they can't get 3 this end, so they will not be able to tie the game. But if you can get 2, a steal of 1 or a steal of 2 to win is very much in the cards. So there is, I think that was the right call, well executed, just well managed by the team all around, and Jack Gearin's got a tough shot here. Try to sit 1. Ideally make it so Brendan doesn't have an easy shot, even for 1, let alone 2. That was a great shot by Brendan for sure. All right, so this stone from Jack Gearin looks pretty good. It's going to be wide open for Brendan, who did just throw a takeout. He's got to be careful here. He wants to take this out, and he wants to make sure that the shooter sticks around. It just has to get that yellow out of the rings, and the red has to stay in the rings. So, given the level of difficulty on his last shot, famous last words, but this should be a much more easy shot. It's the same turn he just threw. Ideally, he throws this with a little less weight, but if he throws it with a little less weight, it'll curl more. It might get a little more scary. Sometimes it's easier to just throw the same shot you just threw. But if you throw the same shot you just threw, you have to hit nose or close to nose, because that was a big weight takeout he threw before. And a big weight takeout, if it's off nose, the shooter's going to roll out, and you really want to get 2 here instead of 1. All right, so we'll see if Brendan can make this a 1-point game going to the final end. Sweepers on it early, but don't seem that scared about it. Now they're trying to push it, try to curl it, and now they're off. This looks really good. This looks really good, and it is. So 2 points for Colorado State. Makes it a 6-5 games with UPenn having the hammer coming home in the 8th. And we've got a great one. I will be right back on sheet 3. Let's take a look at the other sheets that are also getting close to the finish line. On sheet 1, RPI was able to steal again in the 7th. So after losing all 4 of the first ends, they have won all 3 of the back half ends and are now leading by 3, 7-4 in the final end. So we'll keep an eye on that one, but Minnesota needs to score 3 to keep this game alive with the hammer. Over on sheet 2, there was a big end from Omaha, Nebraska, it looks like, over RIT. And that may be the first game to wrap up now, seeing that they're starting the 8th and they're up 4. Omaha, Nebraska want to keep this wide open. That is a big end, and it looks like that was a steal of 4 too. So anyone who is watching the stream of sheet 2 got to see a big steal probably. On sheet 4, we've got a great one here in the 8th end with Bowdoin now having the lead by 1 without hammer. So this is definitely a tight situation. We actually did do a poll of some of the curlers ahead of time of what situation would you like to be in the 8th end? Would you prefer to be up 1 without hammer, tied with hammer, or would you, and then vice versa if you'd like to be down 1 with hammer or tied without hammer, so a little bit more of a dire situation. And generally speaking, we saw the split more on the lines of skips preferring to have the hammer, non-skips preferring to not have the hammer. Generally, that's not always the case, but that's what we ended up seeing. So we get to see some of those scenarios here in this game, your feature game here between Colorado State and Penn. It is a 1-point game where it's 1-point lead and have the hammer, so that's definitely not one of the situations I had talked about, only because that's a great spot to be in. But obviously Colorado State has done their job to at least make this interesting, and they threw a perfect centerline guard to start. It's on the center line, so if that gets ticked, which it might here, let's see. Oh, they just ended up burning it beforehand. And that's fine. I mean, the thing is, sometimes you let that shot play out just because maybe the skip likes the result better than leaving that stone in the center. But in this case, there was almost no scenario where if I'm Brendan Polo, I wanted to leave. I want to get that guard off the center line. I love where that's placed. So really fine to burn that rock, touch that rock before it hit the stone. That way you don't have the issue, as I mentioned earlier, of putting the rock exactly where it was. Need to steal here. A second guard would be fine. Something that's just top of the house is fine too, but this looks really good. They have the high-low guard possibly set up. Is it biting? It is biting. I don't know if Penn is going to chase it though, because it's still the free guard zone rule and it's perfectly buried, so really that has the effect of a second guard anyways. So even though it's not the free guard zone, it's not like Penn really has an option to chase that. So instead, they're actually going to try to beat them to the button here. So that's a decision Jack Gearin is making here, to beat him to the button. And as I was mentioning before, the situation on sheet 4 is that down 1 with hammer is the situation that University of Minnesota Duluth's in, with a very tight house. If anyone's looking at the sheet 4 stream, that is, if I'm Bowdoin, I'm very happy with the way it's set up right now. But I'm not going to flip over yet because we got a classic here, so I won't flip out unless they're doing a discussion. Also, that worked out as a great result there. I didn't even think they could get to that stone, but they did. But it was in the house, so that yes, they could spill that stone, and so they did. So that's actually a really good result. If you're UPenn, you're really happy with that stone. Even though they called the bury, that is arguably an even better result. But anyways, as I was saying, on sheet 4, a really good setup here for Bowdoin, and they are up 1 without hammer. Minnesota Duluth is down 1 with hammer, and we see in the chat here, looks like Dave said down 1 with hammer is preferred. Have faith in yourself. Now, is that down 1 with hammer for yourself, or down 1 with your team and you're not skipping? So, definitely, if you're a confident skip, you want to have that hammer shot, knowing that, look, if I make a big shot here, we at worst tie the game. All right, a stone on the way. Okay. So if you're Penn here, you have the lead and the hammer, the last stone advantage. So you have no problem blowing stones out of play as much as possible. You want as few rocks in play as possible, make it an easy open takeout. You don't even need to keep the shooters around. Sometimes you don't even want the shooters to stick around. Just make sure that there's no good way for Colorado State to get a steal here. Nothing buried for them. So right now we're past the free guard zone rule, and Brendan Polo knows this, so he's going to try to get as much junk up front as possible and save the draws to get a better sitting stone towards the end when he has no choice to do so. But right now he's going to try to clog it up, knowing that Jack Gearin is going to keep taking stones out of play, opening it up. It's a battle of clogging it up versus opening it up. And right now, as you see, Jack Gearin lining up. He would love to get both of these stones out of play. If he can get a big weight takeout here, then he's going to be really happy with the result. I think this is the last stone for Joseph Katz, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's the fourth rock of the end for him. He's got the hammer. So Joseph Katz throws a big weight takeout here and hits the outside of that yellow, or maybe even just hits like closest to nose. He wants as many stones as possible moving. This is definitely one of my weaknesses when I'm skipping a team. I never seem to get these peels right when I'm trying to open things up. I only seem to clog it up more and more, which is always a headache. But these guys are a lot better than I am, and that is a perfect shot right there. If you're UPenn, you got to be happy with that result. That not only got rid of 2 guards, but also the shooter rolled to basically be a corner guard. Again, if you're going to steal here, realistically, Colorado State, you gotta get something close to the 4-foot. And there's no guards here, so you really just got to hope for a flash here from UPenn. At some point, really nicely executed there from UPenn. Really nice shot by Joseph Katz. Great line call. Great shot call by Jack Gearin. It was perfect from Jay Katz. Agreed. And Joseph Katz seems like this. I mean, I already said he did seem like a stand-up guy from the 15, 30 seconds I talked to him, but the love he's getting on this chat, I love it. I love it. So Stone there ends up being a center guard. It looks like Jack Gearin's going to just try to rip that back out. Got to be careful here not to jam on the yellow stone that's in the house. Oh, he's actually going for the shot rock. Never mind, my mistake. I thought he was going to go for the center rock. He's going for the shot rock. Gets that out of play comfortably and rolls to the wing. No danger there. So Brendan wisely is going to be calling a guard here. Now you might think, well, why not draw in? You at least got 1 guard there. No, again, you only need. Brendan's just trying to steal 1 here. I mean, maybe he'll think about 2 if he gets a miss later, but your best chance to steal here is put more traffic up front, make it harder and harder and harder for Penn to blow those stones out, and then on your last shot, you being Brendan, then you draw in behind the cover, and hopefully they can't get to you by then. But if you come in too early, you're just giving them target practice, just keep blowing you up in the house, and it's going to be harder and harder for your last shot to actually matter. So this one ends up being effectively a guard, but there is a double there, and that looks like that's exactly what Jack Gearin's going to call here, try to double peel those stones. And if he can get definitely want to throw with big weight, because you don't want that red to jam too much and spin in. That would be probably the worst case scenario. You don't want to give red a shot here. But that being said, it's not the end of the world because it should be pretty exposed. So we'll see how this peel looks. It did jam on the yellow, a little unfortunate, but it is wide open and it just opens it up more. So that's not necessarily a bad result there for Penn. Basically all guards are completely taken out. Luke Cryer's beanie is the source of his power. Interesting. Man, I'm excited. As I said, I'm going out to. It's not Colorado. I still have not made it out to Colorado yet in my lifetime, but I will be out in Utah next week. So maybe there's some magic beanies out there that I can get. Although I don't know if Utah is necessarily the place to find that. But oh well, I digress. Anyways. Big shot here for Brendan. He is now sitting 1. It is behind the tee and there are no guards in play. So he wants to throw something high here, maybe at deepest top 12, biting top 12. Preferably guarding that red that's back 4, that's shot rock right now. Just to let everyone know, no sheets have shook yet. Even sheet 2, which has the widest margin. RIT is actually crafting a pretty magnificent end, it looks like, in this 8th, even down 4. So tune into sheet 2. We'll go over there if this game ends, but obviously all these games are nail biters right now. I mean, this is just excellent. Heck, even on sheet 1, RPI's in trouble. And PENN is calling timeout right now. Never a bad decision in the 8th end when you have your timeout and you want to just make sure you can seal up the game to call it. A good shot from Brendan Polo. It's not really covering that red, but it is sitting second count. And so it is a question of what stone do you want to hit if you are PENN, and I'm assuming that's why they're calling the timeout here. Decide if they want to go after shot rock and make it a wide open house, but know that if you leave a stone in the top, Brendan can draw behind that and you basically have the setup he's been looking for. Or you could try to rip that top stone. You could try to go for the double. Obviously it's not an easy shot, but you could rip that top stone, and then Brendan basically just has to throw the same stone he has again. But then you give them a better stone that's sitting shot. And it looks like, based on some of the coaching here, it looks like they do want to try to go for that double, with the miss obviously being you can just peel that guard, get the shooter, the yellow stone that you throw, have that roll out of play, have the red roll out of play, and basically make Brendan Polo do the same shot he just did. And worst case scenario, you're going to have a hit to win. If it spills out, you still get the tie and you go to an extra end with hammer, or a draw for the win, depending on what Jack Gearin is feeling. Just quickly, while we're in the timeout here, let's go to sheet 4, take a look here. It looks like they're also discussing at Bowdoin. So Minnesota Duluth was able to get Bowdoin's stone that was sitting on the button earlier out of play. And Bowdoin does not have hammers, so they're looking to get this red out of play and maybe get under some cover. But if everything were to stand here, Minnesota Duluth would win this game. Over on sheet 2, you can see that RIT is crafting a monster end, possibly. So Omaha, Nebraska needs to get some stuff out. And on sheet 1, they are shaking hands. It looks like RPI had one in the house that was out counting at least the third count. And so RPI, I believe, has emerged victorious over on sheet 1, if I were to guess, just based on how that looked. But back to the action here on sheet 3. Jack Gearin's first shot. It's a little wide. It's hanging a little wide. Ooh, it's going to pick the red, but it's actually just going to bury it behind the corner guards. And so while now it's wide open, Colorado State with a good guard here could be sitting 1, 2, or 3. Well, definitely 2 at least, but could be sitting 1, 2, and 3, with Jack Gearin needing to make a perfect draw to win the game. Now you saw where he put his broom here. There's a reason why he doesn't want this to just go right on the button. If he goes right on the button, fairly straightforward shot for Jack Gearin to just hit it and he wins the game. Or hit it and stick around. Or draw down to it with like bump weight and stick around and he wins. If he leaves this high, and high being like biting the top of the 8 foot, what that does is that means it forces Jack Gearin, who just threw a hit, to throw a draw, because he cannot hit that stone on the top of the 8 foot and outcount the other 2 stones that are in play, and so he would lose. Even if he gets the double, it's still the tie. So you really don't want this going too deep. Deeper is worse for Brendan here. Higher is fine. And unfortunately, the sweepers right off the bat are saying this seems a little hot out of his hand. We will see. Oh, sweepers are on it now, so it must have come down decently. Remember, you don't want to oversweep this. Higher is better, deeper is worse if you're Colorado State. And that's a pretty perfect looking shot. With that shot there, if Jack Gearin hits that stone, in all likelihood, unless he gets some really favorable roll, or he gets the double, Colorado State is going to win the game. So it looks like they're going to call draw, and they're going to try to draw to backing. Now, I like coming this way because there is that red stone for backing. However, with that high corner guard, it does get a little tight because you got to be inside that corner guard, but you got to get around that top 12 red. So there is some risk with drawing this way. You do definitely have to attempt the draw here, though, because the hit, I think you lose the game unless you make a perfect double. And even then, that's just for a tie. I think you just go for the win here with a really good draw. And Jack Gearon's thrown some really nice draws today. But this stone's got to just get inside that yellow corner guard, and the sweepers can pound it. You can miss heavy here to that backing. You can't miss light. The sweepers are on it. It's starting to bite now. It's starting to bite. Can the sweepers get it there? Can the sweepers get it there? Can they get it around this red? Can they get it around the red? Oh man, can they sweep? Can they sweep? Oh, it's so tough to tell. It's tough to tell. It could be, I think red is 1. I think yellow's 2. If you were holding a gun to my head and forced me to say, they definitely got to measure this. I think this is a tie game. I think we're going to a 9th end, if I were to guess. I think this is going to a 9th end. They're calling a technical timeout for an official measure. Because this could be, I mean, I think red's definitely 1, but this could really be PENN wins if that yellow is outcounting both reds. This could be a tie. We go to the 9th end, which is what I think it's going to be. Or this could be Colorado State wins if both those reds outcount that yellow. So this is about as fun of an ending as you can possibly see. And we might not be done, folks. We might have a 9th end here. We got 29 people on the stream. What do you guys think? Looking at a top view. My gut is I think it's 1 red. I think it's 1 red. I think we have an extra end. That's my gut. I wonder if fans of UPenn are going to think it's 1 UPenn, and fans of Colorado State say, oh, it's 2 red, obviously. Did they not even measure? It looks like they are going to go to an extra end. I don't even know if they actually measured or not. I'm trying to get clarity here on what the talk was, but I believe they are playing an extra end. So it looks like it was what we saw to the naked eye. It was 1 red for Colorado State. So the University of Pennsylvania will retain the hammer advantage in a tie game, final end. So we definitely get some bonus curling. Nobody's leaving the ice, and I haven't seen handshakes. So that looks like where we're at. And just to get some scores around while we're in this pause, RPI did hang on just barely to win that game 7-6. RPI does defeat Minnesota Twin Cities. Over on sheet 2, while there was a big end brewing for RIT at the end, once again, University of Nebraska Omaha does hang on to win that by a point. And here on sheet 4, where I think I will leave it just for the time being, since this is make or break for Minnesota Duluth. This is the Hammerstone down 1, Bowdoin sitting 1, with it kind of corner frozen on that red. There's a tight port where it looks like they are trying to find a way to either get in and pick that red and play for the tie, or they're trying to run back those yellows. The run back of the yellows seems to make more sense to me, so maybe that's what they're doing. They just are holding the broom back more. And this is a missile that is thrown. This is fast. And it's going to hit their own red. And it looks like that will be handshakes there, with Bowdoin stealing 1 in the final end to defeat Minnesota Duluth. What a great finish there. That stone at the end was one of the heaviest looking stones I think I have ever seen in person. And with that, we will go to our one and only game that is on, which is our feature game. We got a classic for the morning. Colorado State does not have the hammer, so again, they're starting off with Ross Flaxman throwing lead rocks. He did a great job setting up that 8th end to allow the end to shape up the way it was. As it was, UPenn did get a couple of really nice peels that kind of changed it later on, but did set the tone early. This one overcurls just a little bit, but still, you know, a guard in play, a rock in play in the guard zone is a good shot. We got absolutely a very thrilling way to start the games. I am very happy with this being the first game to call. Obviously, being the sole commentator here, you know, my throat's getting pretty dry here, so the extra end, I could have used the break. I will be commentating the noon game as well, but I will have a partner, at least for that one, so I'll make him do most of the talking for me. But appreciate everyone on the live chat here. You guys have been great company. Hopefully I've been not talking your ear off too much, not boring you too much, not annoying you too much. But this game is a great game to start. I completely agree. For Pool C right here, big implications. RPI and Minnesota Twin Cities are also in the same pool. So both teams here are going to be playing those two teams each. So RPI has the advantage right now, having won their first game over Minnesota. The winner here obviously will be tied with RPI as we move into pool play, or further pool play. And those games will be at, I think, 4 o'clock today, if I'm not mistaken. The Pool C games will be, at least. So anyone who's watching this game and is a fan of these teams, you'll be hopefully tuning back in 4 o'clock Eastern time, 2 o'clock, I guess, Mountain West time. All right. So looks like both teams are committing to just playing that center line game here, which, you know, again, I've said many times with the hammer, you don't want to play to the center, but when it's just a winner-take-all final end, it's really sometimes, I'm not saying this has to be the strategy, what team trusts their draw weight and getting to the button first. Right now, Colorado State's in there, but it's back 4, so there's definitely room for a better rock to get in there on either team. But now with 2 center guards thrown by UPenn, they've basically committed to saying, whoever gets in there first, we're okay with that, and we're just going to guard for our life. So definitely a risky decision, where sometimes with hammer you like to keep it open so that you have an easy hit at the end. But, you know, as you saw last end, that was the end that UPenn tried to do, and it didn't quite work out in their favor. So, you know, this is maybe a good decision to kind of switch it up a little bit. Alrighty. So, looks like they're trying to draw in here. I'm curious if they wanted to draw the other way. There is a little backing if you draw the other way. I know it has to be a little wider to go around those center guards, but I personally would draw with the in-turn if you're right-handed, so the clockwise turn coming from the left side of your screen. I think that there's more, if it curls nicely to that back red, there's a lot more room there. But, you know, a good draw is a good draw regardless. So we will see here if Mr. Katz can throw a good one in there. If only he knew the support he's getting on this stream. He probably knows. Seems like he's the type of guy who would know he's getting all that support. All right, so a little heavy but a little narrow, so it ends up opening it up a little bit. That's not necessarily bad if you're the hammer team, which is obviously what PENN is, so that's okay. Bowden. Sorry, answering a question. All right, so now Colorado State is going to try to presumably to get in there. They are using that draw path side that I like. I don't think they would go for the hit and roll here. I mean, I know I certainly wouldn't. So I did. Yeah, this looks like draw weight, which is the right call. Hit. It's whatever team gets a point wins the game. So that stone out there on the wing, hitting that is just wasting a stone. Hitting and rolling is a much harder shot than just drawing. So you don't care about that stone if you're Colorado State. You don't care about really any stone. That's not, your stones and your guards. So this will end up acting as a guard, which right now, since they're shot rock, that's okay. And now this really is the time for UPenn to get in there. I would think if they're going to try the draw game. It looks like, by the way Jock Guerin's looking right now, it looks like he's walking up. So maybe he's trying to open it back up. Definitely not bad. But based on the way it was set up, I thought that they were going to just try to play the draw game and beat him to the button. And they definitely can. I mean, the 4-foot's there, but no issues here. Definitely strategically never a bad move to open it up when you have the hammer. Final end tie game.
Not today.
All right, so looks like the peel was effective, or at least moderately effective. So there is still that wide open draw path on that side. If I'm Denver, I don't know. I guess there's enough options where you can't get too complacent, but you could always throw up some more guards here and draw later, but not an issue to try to put a better counter in at this point. Because there is also that run that yellow could have on that yellow stone that's up in the top 12. At some point, Penn could try to do that if they really are getting, they're in a bad spot. So well, this is going to be okay. This is going to work out as a guard. That's not a bad miss at all. We'll see if Jack wants to open that back up or not. It looks like he's instead going to opt for the draw, so it's do or die time here. It's time for UPenn to try to get that counter in there. So now it's a true race to see who can get the better shot in there, because it looks like there's going to be guards this end, and there's not going to be hits like there was in the 8th end. Sweeper's on it for the line. It's going to get around that guard, it looks like, just barely. Is it going to slow down? Brendan's going to get on it, but I think it's going to be shot. It's going to be tough for him to sweep it deep enough. It is shot. It is shot, but that same draw path is there, and it is back of the house. So, yep, Colorado State's going to try the same shot, just a tiny, tiny bit lighter. If I were both teams, I'd probably give a little bit more ice. You just got to get around that guard. As long as the weight's right, you're fine. You can hang out 6 inches wider, and it's not a big deal. But you can't afford to crash on that guard right now, I don't think, especially if you're Colorado State. But it looks like this is going wide anyways. They're pushing it to curl. Now they're off. Oh, the weight looks really nice here if the sweepers finish this. Oh, that's a really nice looking shot by Colorado State. Almost biting button, full 4. And they are almost fully buried behind that center guard. So they're sitting shot. And what does Jack Guerin want to do here? Does he want to try to bump it out? If he can get enough curl there, does he want to peel the center guard? It looks like he's opting for the bump. Try to just skinny past that red guard and bump the red stone. What you really can't afford here is to miss wide and miss everything. If you miss really wide and you chip your own yellow, that actually could be a good plan B. But you can't afford to miss super, super wide. Go for the chip here. If you're yellow, you want to, oh, and they don't get it. The plan B was probably the chip on that yellow stone there, and unfortunately they didn't get that. All right, so now Colorado State really can start to lock this down. Put up a guard. The risk of drawing a second one in there is if you leave it staggered and corner frozen, a double's there. You give them a target to hit. You give a target for Jack to hit. So realistically, a guard is probably safer because all you got to do is just junk it up. You did also just see that yellow stone is a danger rock for you. So you could, I don't know if I would have the guts to call this, but you could hit the yellow rock that's biting top 12, roll in under cover, or roll in as a guard. But I think I just like the safe guard here if I'm Colorado State. But we'll see. We'll see what they decide to do. No matter what, Penn will have some options. They will have a couple options with runbacks or big in-offs. Not that those are easy shots, but they are options. That's the advantage of having hammer. Even if it looks like you're in major trouble, most likely you're able to get things to work. And I realize I'm stopping the streams. Alrighty, so it looks like they discussed it over a little bit. Brendan Polo coming back. Is there a big crowd huddling over? Yeah, there's a significant number of people behind me watching. Some biting their nails, some watching, covering their eyes, depending on what side you're rooting for here. Definitely some supporters for both sides here, though, and definitely the next draw starts at noon. Their practice is due to start, I think, at 11:20 or something like that. So, because of that, basically all the other teams are here, including all the sheets that just finished. Sheets 1, 2, and 4 are all done. So, definitely a sizable crowd here. Hopefully, the background noise is not too unbearable for you. At least not more unbearable than my noise is. All right, so looks like shots on the way here from Brendan. It looks like it's draw weight. It's definitely not a guard. The concern here is if you corner freeze to that red, you don't want to give up a double, and that's exactly what there is an open double now. That was the stone that I was talking before. That was the shot you didn't necessarily want to leave for Jack to get to, because if Jack can throw and just get to the outside of that red. It's not an easy shot to get to that red, especially with where that yellow is positioned, but now you can actually get that red out, whereas before it was buried so nicely. I don't even think, I think with a perfect shot from Jack, it would have been very difficult for it to actually make. I would have just thrown the guard there. But that's, sometimes you live and die by it. This is not an easy shot by any means. And if anything, it did bury their shot rock a little better. So if Jack doesn't make this shot, it may be game over then, because then Brendan's just, he's got a very easy position, him in Colorado State, to guard that rock that's basically on the button, fully behind cover. Shots on the way. Sweepers are off it. Now sweepers are on it. Both sweepers are on it. They got to try to get this to the outside of that red, and unfortunately, it's gonna clear the guard, but it is not gonna get the double they wanted because it hits the inside. So, unfortunately for UPenn, that actually takes away maybe their biggest help that they had. They do still have an option because they have that yellow that's out wide. They could always run that yellow back at an angle. Again, not an easy shot, but it's there. It'd be interesting to see if Brendan learns from his last shot and tries to do the exact same thing, or if he just calls the guard. I would throw a guard, and I would throw it wide here. I think that this is pretty tight ice for a guard. What happened? All right, so Brendan Polo's last shot of the game, no matter what. I can assure you this will not be a blank end. I think even if it is a blank end, I think technically the Hammer team loses in Nationals. I think if you have Hammer and you choose to blank a ninth end, you get punished for that. So I believe that's the rule, but this is not going to be a blank end, I can assure you, based on where the stones are. So this is Brendan Polo's last shot of the game here. We got 46 people watching. I love it. All right, out turn on the way. We'll see if he throws draw or he throws a guard. Sweepers are on it immediately. This one looks lighter than the last one. Sweeper's still on it. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, he's hitting his own guard. That is the shot you... So that's a shot, especially with that tight ice. And Penn is quickly calling their bonus timeout that they get for the extra end. Now that shot rock is exposed. If you're Colorado State, that is definitely not the shot you wanted. You definitely wanted to leave anything wide, and anything short would have been fine. This definitely opens the door for UPenn and Jack Guerin to throw perhaps the biggest shot of his young curling career. Sorry about that, I muted my mic. I hope people weren't scared that I was abandoning them. We do have timeout called by UPenn. We're still in it. A lot of people standing here, excited to watch this final shot here. So yeah, the risk with that last shot from Brendan is really you're only trying to get one. So putting that second rock in, you saw in his first shot, it set up a double. Luckily for him, and unfortunately for UPenn, they missed that double. Weren't able to get on the correct side of that rock, but it did set up a bigger target. So on the second time, I would have expected maybe to play a little bit wider, and well, instead they played tight ice, same call, because they wanted to not hang out wide, and unfortunately that led to picking the guard, and now leaving Jack a shot. If he can get around that guard, the takeout's there to win the game. Now, you got to be careful how you hit this, though. There are a lot of jam possibilities with that red stone. If you hit nose, you probably win the game still, but it's hard to hit nose because of how that guard is positioned. It'll have to curl enough to get to nose. Ideally, if you're Jack, you want to just get across nose. You don't want to throw super massive takeout weight. If you hit this wide, there is a good chance your shooter spills out and the red jams on one of those back two stones, and Colorado State still wins the game. So this game really, I can't stress enough, this is a toss-up right here. Shot on the way. Outside sweeper pushing. Inside sweeper holding. Oh no. Oh, and that's brutal. That is brutal. If they clear that guard, that's the made shot right there. All they needed was just to get around that guard. Just barely ticks the guard. And unfortunately for Penn, that stone just barely misses. And a great comeback win for the Rams of Colorado State, who ended this game with a victory. Congratulations to the team of Brendan Polo and his roster of Josh Payoff, Chris Rocheleau, and Ross Flaxman. They are 1-0, and they join RPI as 1-0, where the Penn Quakers will drop to 0-1. They will be back at 4 o'clock today. Both teams will be back with new matchups this afternoon, so definitely tune in for that game this afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Hope you had a good time watching this. I know I certainly did. I will be back on the call with my good friend Matt Green for the noon draw for the next pool of games. If anyone wants to tune in for that, we will be happy to have you. And with that, sign off and stopping the stream. Thank you, everyone.